welcome back to the Daily Transcendence podcast. June 28th, 2021.
1456.
Jesuit. The Jesuit order. What a journey that's been, huh? Going back into the past and learning. There's so many directions you can go and so many topics you could hit within the topic. It's a deep topic. And no wonder why most people either don't really even want to go into it or talk about it too, because history is to me, it's so vague. It's so like, you have to always take someone else's advice. You have to always listen to someone else's story.
It's fast, it's vague, and it's visceral. You know what's funny though? That whole Jesuit thing. Like when we first, in the beginning, just me and you, like it started coming up and like talking about it here and there. Really did not think it would go as deep as where we're at now. You know what I mean? Like more so like, I guess like some of the truths and proofs and proof that there's been of certain things. I didn't think that like answer would be like, here you go on the silver platter. That's that. This makes sense completely. Like it's almost undeniable. And it's like, wow, I didn't expect to actually get that full information. You know, there's a couple things that I didn't really realize they would end up going that deep, but it makes sense now with all the different connections to just all things that most people know.
Yeah. Well, and at this point too, I've gotten to the point with any of the topics or discussions we're having, and what I'm reading is I take anything now with a grain of salt. I have strictly no belief about anything I'm reading anymore. You know, I mean, going into topics like history and understanding how things came to be, I mean, you technically don't know. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And that's what I'm learning. Like I listen and I observe, and a lot of people I notice are just so quick to say, oh, that's it, or I believe that. Like, we don't even know. You hear a lot of, conspiracy people talk. It is the Jesuits. You know, it is the Masons. And of course, there's like signs and symbols and things that point towards those, like, you know, to those people. But like, you don't really know. And it's just, how can you be so sure? How could you be so sure about anything? How could you be so sure about the shape of the earth? It's a big debacle. I get it. It's a big argument over all of it. Like, people either want to be right or they want something to fit their agenda. But none of us really know. So it's not that we'll never know. Maybe certain things we won't, but it's a matter of just staying suspended, you know?
Yeah. It leaves you open to being able to take the blinders off to, you know, anything that comes your way. At least there's things that just won't slip past you at that point. You know, that's the beauty of it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you mentioned the whole thing, the Freemasons, like, you know, we had one of our awesome, devoted listeners, Daniel O'Brien, I believe, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That was Micah's boy.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, the fact that, you know, I just want to mention how he reached out, like, you know, and, you know, said about, thanks for clearing up, you know, about like masonry and stuff like that, because everybody's so quick to blame like Masons and stuff for like thinking that they're all part of some sort of like Illuminati and stuff like that. And like, that's the funny thing. It's like, that's one of the answers I've gotten from, you know, that we've gotten from going into all this stuff was like, all right, well, who's like, are they bad? Are they good? I know I've said this actually in a previous episode where I was like, I always wondered, but now like going deeper into this stuff, like I really realized that like that the Freemasonry was actually like a perfect thing in place already to kind of hide some of these underlying societies like the Illuminati, like to get the initiation process going and to have the organization. They used it. And it's like your typical normal everyday Mason is not necessarily part of the Illuminati or anything and stuff like that. For most parts, they really aren't actually. It's just these higher degree Masons that may have started off in Masonry and went deeper into separate depths, but in reality, it's actually separate. It's its own separate entity. It's its own separate thing. It's the same thing where it's like, you have different types of denominations of Christians and Catholics and whatever, like, you know what I mean? Inside those, each one. So it's like the same thing. And the only way you get that is like from what you're saying, that to be able to get that answer and understanding is like, and not that you're going to get it with everything, but keeping that open, not being like, yep, boom, that's it, answer only, whatever. If it's just like the definites like that, you're selling yourself short.
Well, and just I like to stick to, say, consistencies. When something's consistent and it's being shown over and over again, it's the fascination I have with gematria. The undertones to it may not be, they don't wrestle with me very well with how everything's designed by humans and all that. And like people are putting that together. But that's a topic where that's one of the most obvious to me, that obviously there's some prevalent information there that's going, this is something. I don't know what it is, but numbers are repeating. They are. And they're repeating in a pattern to where it's very, it's showing. It's showing me something that there's some sort of either design, or maybe the matrix itself communicates with through numbers, or maybe numbers come up through black magic or something like that. But I'm not going to immediately go, it's the Jesuits, it's the Masons, it's this, it's that. It's not smart to do that, because you're not going to get to the answer, because you're jumping the gun. And most people do it. It actually happens a lot with spirituality. Obviously, it's happened with religions. People assume that their version of God and their version of life and their scriptures are 100% correct. And it's, to me, you've boxed yourself into a reality. Like no wonder why people get so depressed and miserable and life loses its color, and it gets black and white, because you've made a decision on anything. And it's like, well, how about we just based in the unknown? Wouldn't that be smarter? We're going to learn. You're probably going to learn quicker, because you're going to learn what's wrong and what's right. So observe what's wrong and what's right. Like, hear all perspectives. By picking something and going, that's it, that's just not smart research, or, even just, it's not wise.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Especially because at that point, it's like, because then there's like not that it's like, okay, you're after the chase of going down the rabbit hole, I mean, hey, listen, it's good to go down a rabbit hole, also to a healthy degree. But that's the thing, when you have this sort of, because there's a borderline of when you have a definitive, like you feel like you have a definitive answer on something, that's when you start going into, okay, well, now I have a belief system that this is the way it is, and that's it, and it's final, and that, like you said, puts you in a box. There's certain things that may have definites, obviously, but something like that, it's a lot more complex to be trying to come up with definites there. But like you said, like the whole thing, like people just being like, oh, it's the Jesuits, it's the Illuminati, it's this secret society, it's this president, it's the
reptiles,
the reptilians, it's this thing. Instead, I think a better way to view it would be like, well, when it comes to whatever subject or topic or something that you're into and it comes up, it's better to be like, well, there's, I feel like there's a definite connection of a part to play that maybe the Jesuits have in this, or the Illuminati has in this. There's a part to play. Not necessarily it's like, boom, they're doing it, they're causing it, whatever, and stuff like that. Like it's really not that. Because what's crazy, like you said about the numerology, and I do want us to do an episode on it, because it's actually going to be really fascinating. What are they called? It's about like, and it goes into numerology a little bit. It goes back to like this original language that supposedly comes from the divine. It's called like, I think it's called Enochian or something like that. I think that's what they named it after Enoch and stuff like that, because there was a lot of communication, in those stories and stuff. And it's like relating them back, obviously, because we have our oldest things where it's like the Hebrew, Sumerian texts and Sanskrit and stuff. Like those are like the oldest language that most of these older ancient types of languages that aren't known, that's what they get compared to, is those ones that are actually more so known and like decoded already in that way. But it's crazy how it goes into it, because it really speaks about, it goes back to the whole thing of words being sound and vibration, and then the numeric and like the geometric pattern of it, and then it goes down to a numerical value of it. And like you said, like it's like the language of the universe. It's the language of it. It's just that it's been given to us in a form. I do have a feeling of that being the scenario. It's like this was given to us some way in our intellectual. Some people be like, well, yes, an angel came down and like spoke to them and was like this, da, 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 da. Like, no, I mean, it could be that. It could be just the fact that it's a switch on in the brain. That's like, this type of information was kind of given to be able to understand and decode. That's why we have math, because it's like, where did math come from? Like, where did numbers come from? What did they base them off of? Like, what's the original type of visual and symbol of a number, and where does it come from? And like, when you go back and you look deep into that, it does give you a better understanding of it. And even the same thing with language. And I think that's important going into a lot of these things and this information, especially when you start dabbling divine. And that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not necessarily a definite. You're just being like, hey, well, it's connected somehow, most likely, but it's helping me better understand it.
Right. Well, and the word occult, as we said over and over again, the occult is, hidden things. And so even something like the meaning of numbers and those symbols and all that, it would be occult because it's a hidden thing. It's not so presented. So to go back and understand what numbers really are, how it was discovered, and what they really mean, would be occult studies. And by me realizing that, like, it's just like, if you want to go figure out the secrets to life, you study the occult, because it's just hidden stuff. It's not presented. It's powerful, because you're actually now, it's like when we started the podcast, we wanted to go back and talk about the origins of symbols and beliefs and how we utilize them as humans to get a better understanding of the world, because sometimes words just don't describe things. You can't put certain things into a word. It's like describing what a mango tastes like. You can't do that. So we make symbols and stuff because we have another part of the brain that can decipher and get some sort of intuitive understanding, some image to understand it. But the symbols behind things, just even that fascinating topic. And I know that there's some Joe Schmoes out there that have some theory and something on why numbers were and how they came about and all that. But to me, it's one of those things where that's where you can't really probably get a solid answer from. You probably, unless we were given it by some divine, or some, I won't even say by the divine creator, but by like a race that had that knowledge. But just in the first place, just how things come about, it's eerily like mysterious. How and why. And the thing is with numbers, how they match up so perfectly when it comes to measurements in nature and the equations and formulas of nature itself. When we're talking about the Fibonacci spiral, and we're talking about pi and all that, it tells me that it's embedded. It's the discovery. That's what I'm saying about gematria with numbers. They match, like, which when you learn how letters are numbers, and how words that mean the same thing, like Jesus and Messiah and Catholic, all end up equaling 46, I think, or something like that. And it tells me that there's an embedded meaning to those things too. So it's not like we just made them up. That's what's so mysterious about numbers.
Yeah. It definitely is fascinating. And like one of another big thing that's been that's always interests me is like and that just goes to show how human we are, is that we always want to understand things. And like I'm saying, even myself, like we want to understand things in some sort of timeline fashion. But when going into this stuff, you do realize that it's like a lot of things, a lot of the information, a lot of the knowledge goes beyond linear time. And like something that I was looking into was like more so of like a timeline of this, whether it was given type of spiritual knowledge of the divine, like, and how it moved across the world and stuff, and through different types of groups of people and cultures and everything, like really trying to look back at its origins as well. That's always been something that's been a dominant thing in my mind to figure out. So I say figure out, but I don't really mean like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure it out. But to have a good idea of the possibilities where it could have came from. And I fell across this thing. I'm looking for it right now. And like somebody gave a cool like timeline. It was like probably the best one that I saw was like that was like actually put together. Because when you look into it, it's like it's very hard to find something that's going to be really anything like that. I really thought I saved it. I guess I saved the wrong one. That looks kind of different. All right. Anyway, but it was just cool that how it went. And it's like, it goes beyond when you're looking at it, it goes beyond a point of timelines where if you hear those numbers where you're like, oh, this many thousand years ago, there's a lot of people that are just like, yeah, but there was no such thing as humans or anything on Earth, or that was just dinosaurs and stuff. And it's like, well, here's the thing. How do you know that there was no humans? How do you know that it wasn't what we know as humans? How do you know that it wasn't something more divine already there? How do we know that dinosaurs were really, you know, what we think of as being dinosaurs, as these like, you know, things? How do we know they weren't like actually dragons? You know, I mean, when you think about it and you look at it, what was the purpose? What was the purpose of dinosaurs' arms being so small? Think about it. And we always say that it's like their closest resemblance is to a bird or a chicken and stuff like that. Those things were wings.
You know, it's ironic. You say like a bird, but they're reptiles. Is a lot of ancient texts always show the serpent and the eagle.
Yeah.
So why, you know, it's funny how it's a combination of both. And just how, see, to me right there, it's like maybe it's to someone who doesn't think too much is going to go, you're overthinking it. But it's like, no, I'm not overthinking it. That is some sort of connection. Like sometimes things don't mean anything, but what you said, it is prominent. It's like dinosaurs have arms like birds and they're reptiles. And those are two very well-mentioned things constantly in history. And it's like, well, what does that mean? You know, and honestly too, I've heard a lot of theories that dinosaurs and all that stuff was a lie, and people will laugh at that. You know, they'll laugh at that, but this is my thing with it all. So if you know, and this is me recently, like once again, this is coming back to why I started this part of the conversation of people are so quick to listen to somebody else, hear what they want to hear from it, and assume it's correct. We don't do enough research and we don't do enough suspension of our own beliefs to really understand and look into things. And if we don't have the solid answer, why have we stopped looking? Why are we just listening to the textbook and the scientists and all that? Well, just be, they're professionals. They went to a school. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. You know, I mean, we're hypnotized to be told what to think consistently about any topic. You know, I mean, being a kid and sitting in CCD and being told what to believe as a young boy, I'm sitting there going, why are you so in a rush to tell me what to think and why to think it and all that? You know, and by the way, with dinosaurs, The Lost World and Jurassic Park, one of my favorite like movies as a kid, and I loved the idea of it. But then when I grew older, it's like, why am I going to take someone else's word for it? Let me go on. Unless I'm there seeing it, I'm not going to believe it. And Eric Dubay has some things on, I haven't looked too much into it, but he claims that He's the big flat earth guy, but he also claims they lied about the dinosaurs and our history. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, people laugh at that, but yet have never really been to any places or seen it for themselves. And we're so used to it now, it's become a habit that if we see it on screen or somebody that we consider credible told us that, we believe it.
No, that's the thing. It's like people see it as like, like that's like fantasy bullshit or whatever and stuff, or it's just the fact, like, why would they lie about it? Well, the same way we're making connections. So yes, it may be about dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs connects to maybe, what the earth actually is, or if it's certain things that are different layers to it. And then that connects to more of like understanding something else, which understands something else. And you could really understand a bigger thing about life in general and about yourself. So yeah, I mean, imagine if, people woke up to that, and, people are though waking up to certain things and understanding these possible occurrences and truths that, it would change reality for us. It would absolutely change things. And I think people just don't want to go there. They don't want to go there. And like that whole thing about like dinosaurs, like, I mean, look at all the different, like even the Bible, it's not just the, Eastern cultures, like the Asian cultures or anything, but all of them have talked about dragons. Dragons have been a prominent thing. If we're saying that, think about it on an evolution or an animalistic type level and stuff. What is the purpose of a dinosaur having short arms like that? It's not for grabbing. It's not for using to defend yourself or anything and stuff like that. And the way the bones are shaped, it is shaped like wings because they're short. And if they're wings and what are dragons? Dragons have those wings as well and stuff. So who's to say that they're not actually dragons? And if they are dragons, what kind of truth can that lead to? And that's just something I feel like is more of a productive way of being able to think it, because then you're moving forward to understand connections. And like I constantly say is that it's not necessarily about that you're going to find the truth. And to have the expectation with certain things to be like, yeah, I'm going to find a definitive truth, I feel like you're setting yourself up a little bit. But the thing is to uncover lies. I think it's easier. I don't even want to say easier, but I think it's just more, it helps get you to the truth by working on understanding what's false, or understanding what has the potential of being some sort of programming or indoctrination. What's the motives behind lying about something, rather than being like, oh, like if you're looking for the truth, you got to look for the motive in order to find the truth. And to think about it, just a detective's work. What do? They look for motive behind certain crimes. They look for the different suspects. They look for trails and stuff like that. They don't look to be like, oh yeah, like they're not just going directly for the truth. They're trying to find it through evidence, through proof, through thinking, through connections. And I feel like that's the same way this type of information needs to be treated.
Right. And that's really the point here is you hear another theory. And if you've never been there or you're not a professional, and I understand that there is experts and people who do things for a living that you're supposed to trust. But when you start seeing knowledge that maybe is contradictory, but you just don't want to believe it. And I see this ridicule. It goes back to flat earth and why I keep bringing that up. It is a big topic for me because guess what? There's too many things not to ask questions about. And when it comes down to that, it changes the whole history of things. So if that's, a lie we've been living, what else have they lied about now? So like I've entered now a state in my life where not that I'm delusional, but if anything, I've stepped out of delusion. Most people would call someone delusional who is looking up conspiracies, trying to find different theories. And it's like, well, no, it's like, look, life actually got real fucking boring real quick. It's the way we live society and all that stuff. Even when I'm talking to like my family and they're like, oh, you need to go find yourself a girl and this and that. It's like, oh, where am I going to go? Oh, you go to the bar, or, it's always the answer is like,
It's a
you go to a
great fucking
rave, go to a
place.
bar, go to a place where you're going to do like nothing good for yourself.
Where your inhibitions are fucking lowered.
Right. Always. And it's like, that's society. And you just, I don't know. To me, it's just something doesn't feel right. So now you step on a journey and it's like, we're in this age where it's like, look, now we have access to everything. Let's ask all the questions we can. Wait, someone said dinosaurs actually didn't exist and they lied about it basically as this hoax for money and to just fool people. Like, if you implant the story of dinosaurs, now you've told me a history, and now I'm actually supposed to say this is the way the world evolved. Now, if that's a lie, the way the world evolved wasn't what I was now told, and it changed. That now it's free game. Like now anything's possible, and my mind's always looking for like, life can't be this dull and black and white. There has to. Where did we come from? How did we get in this fucking meat suit? How did my awareness, the awareness I am behind these eyes, end up in a body like this on a place? And if you believe the globe model, that we're on this big ball of water floating around this big ball of fire, and it's in the middle of a void of nothingness, and we're just here as an accident and all that. It's like, nothing can be a fucking accident. Nothing this precise can be an accident. So I'm going to ask all the questions. And when you bring up the dinosaur thing with the hands and all that, meaning like the arms being short, that's, to me, it's like, oh, that does make sense. I'm not going to believe it, but I'm not going to believe the other one. Like, let's just enjoy learning and stop smiting each other. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When people have valid questions, like, if you want to know too, if you're that driven to the point where you got to get real visceral about something, but because you want to either prove that you're right, whether you're defending it or on the attack or anything, like, if you really want to try to get to that point, you're not going to really get there by dismissing questions or not asking them, or having some sort of conversation with people that you need to, and like opening up that realm of thought. Like, you're not going to get it that way. It's going to turn into something that's just real, like, ego driven and totally beside the point. Like, and that's a problem with everything that's being done. It's like, it's being very, very, very surface level.
Yeah. I went and found, there's a page, right? And this is one of the people that, and because we got on this topic of dinosaurs, I'm going to read a little excerpt from I think it's Eric Dubé's WordPress. It says, when children go to a dinosaur museum, are the displays they see displays of science or displays of art and science fiction? Are we being deceived and brainwashed at an early age into believing a dinosaur myth? Deep probing questions need to be asked of the entire dinosaur business. There may have been an ongoing effort since the earliest dinosaur discoveries to plant, mix, and match bones of various animals, such as crocodiles, alligators, iguanas, giraffes, elephants, and they names a bunch and so on, to construct and create a new man-made concept prehistoric animal called the dinosaur. Where the bones from existing animals are not satisfactory for deception purposes, plaster substitutes may be manufactured and used. Some material similar or superior to plasticine clay or plaster of Paris would be suitable. Molds may also be employed. What would be the motivation, here we go, for such a deceptive endeavor? Obvious motivations include trying to prove evolution, trying to disprove or cast doubt on the Christian Bible and the existence of the Christian God, and trying to disprove the young earth theory. The dinosaur concept implies that if God exists, he tinkered with his idea of dinosaurs for a while, then probably discarded or became tired of this creation and then went on to create man. The presented dinosaur historical timeline suggests an imperfect God who came up with the idea of man as an afterthought, thus demoting the biblical idea that God created man in his own image. And that's from David Wozni of Dinosaurs, Science or Science Fiction. So it's interesting.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, it gives you a better way of understanding even just time periods and looking deeper into it and seeing how those time periods with our minds, how we're constructing them and what the meaning or the context behind them are, especially with everything that's involved inside of those eras and periods and whatever's, physically there, or even what's not physically there, but is believed to be a part of it. It's like it puts a definition to life. And when you're putting some sort of definition to life, you're creating some sort of thought and belief behind it. And it all comes down to more than on the more minuscule scale of yourself and your self-awareness and how you believe you exist in the world and everything. And for some people, like, it could be life-changing to understand something differently than where they're at. If they can have that revelation of questioning and being able to try to see things in a different light, it may give them some sort of more meaning to their life. It could give them some more motivation. It could bring on something more positive. So I don't think it should be dismissed like that. And then what I find crazy, I think this is interesting, was I was saying about periods and stuff. There's something that Rudolf Steiner actually he gives an insight on like how like our planet how the planet formed and stuff, or just like how life came to be. And before planets were like solidified, and however they're solidified, he talks about them in periods based off of the planets. So like the first, he says that it goes from the Saturn period, the Sun period, the Moon period, the Earth, and then it goes there. So and he says the Saturn period was when the future solar system only consisted of one big massive substance of glowing gaseous whatever. And in this primal sun, life was already present, suns in air quotes. It consisted of life forms that would later become humans. Those pre-human life forms did not have physical forms yet. That would happen in the last stage, the Earth period. In the Saturn period, they had a very subtle spiritual form, and they had a mineral consciousness. That is a consciousness that is dull, vague, and can be compared with deep trance. During this period, the physical body was being formed, not in physical matter as it is now, but on a subtle level, more like a matrix for the future human body when our planet Earth would be completely physical. And then this primal sun expelled two masses that become Uranus and Saturn. The remaining primal mass, in which gases and fluids moved around, has now entered the second phase, which would be the sun period. The life forms of the Saturn period now had to make a leap into the next phase of their evolution, as their environment had changed by the expulsion of two planets. We had now gotten two kinds of life forms: the most evolved, which were still pre-humans, and those who were behind in their evolution, which would later become the animals. The pre-humans during this sun period had a vegetable consciousness. This was a consciousness that could be compared with a dreamless sleep. It's a consciousness only aware of what happens inside oneself, but not of what happens around oneself. During this period, the etheric body was being developed. Another mass of substance was expelled, which later will become our sun. Our planets were forming as well: Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Venus. This was the moon period. We had a radiating sun and planets and a mass of substance composed of gases and very dense fluids that would later become the Earth and the moon. Under the light from the sun, the gases separated from the fluids. This mass was inhabited with three forms of life. The most evolved were still pre-humans. Included also were those who were behind in their evolution and would later become the animals. Finally, there were those even more behind in evolution. In their evolution, they would become the plants. The pre-humans now had an animal consciousness. With this consciousness, they could evoke images in themselves in relation to what happened around them. During this period, the astral body was being formed. The original primal mass of substance now expelled the moon and became itself the Earth. the earth was becoming physical with gases, fluids, and physical matter. The physical body of man was formed. The life forms less developed than man became animals. The lesser life forms become the plants, and the least developed became rocks, crystals, and physical matter. Humans now had a human consciousness, what we are familiar with today. The sense of ego is being developed, but it is behind the three bodies and development: physical, etheric, and astral. Hence the many errors and illusions of man in his quest for wisdom and knowledge. This is like a basic esoteric teaching as to how our solar system came into being and the development of life forms during this period. It is a little mind stretching, but interesting. But yeah, so Rudolf Steiner goes really deep into these things, and it goes a lot further, but it's an interesting concept, and it's interesting with something else that I've seen about the whole fact of, okay, I know I've said this before too. It's like, people think that it was like matter happened first, but it's like, no, it seems like more so a mental, what we could compare as a mental phenomenon happened first, which created matter. So mind before matter, rather than kind of how we're taught about that one singular point and it's just a bunch of condensed matter and then it just happens. Like, it makes more sense for a mental thing to happen and develop into something physical.
Well, everything's made up of vibration in the first place. It's like, like matter, all it is a bunch of, it's the ether vibrating at a frequency. So it actually can't come from matter first. Matter can't create what it's created from. Exactly. That's like me saying that I created my parents. It doesn't make any sense. Like the creation doesn't create the creator. And the thing is everything's actually stemming from the vibratory field of the ether and the perturbation, as what Ken Wheeler says, so it's to think, if you think that things come from matter first of all, matter doesn't really exist. It's just, it's a function of, it's what we're interacting with when it comes to like the laws of the ether and of the 3D world that we live in. But I always loved using this concept of, when a surgeon tried to cut open your mind and try and find your depression or your happiness or your, your fears and this and that, he's not going to find it, because there's this counter space. Like if you sit back and close your eyes and you start thinking about, say, the house you lived in as a kid, and you start, and you can remember the smell of it, and or maybe your mom cooking your favorite meal, and you could just, as soon as you think of something like that, it comes about. Like, where is that? Where does that even come from? It's in the field of vibration. It's in the ether. Those things come first. So it must be mental first. I mean, it's the first hermetic law as well. All is mind. So I think he's right on that. I mean, Rudolf Steiner has a lot of great stuff. I've yet to dive too deep into his work, but he's a fascinating philosopher, and he goes along with Manly P. Hall, which a lot of people smite because he's an occultist. And it's like, it always goes back to but you really don't know who he is or what read, unless you just want to go about the simple, if this is okay for you, then it's okay. And you don't want to hear this stuff, and it's not, most people want the quick, I want to understand it now. They're we're so programmed to I want to know now. And it's like these philosophies and the meaning of life and how things came about isn't going to come from the scientists going, oh, well, there's these things called dinosaurs and then on top of that, that's mainstream. But then religion's going, oh, we're only 6,000 years old. And it's like, look at all the contradictions. Start asking questions everywhere. There's no stupid question. I believe in that. So.
Yeah, and exactly. It's like, and hey, it's okay to start off surface level. It's an evolution on its own, when doing that as well. And the thing that I like about that whole thing with Rudolf Steiner is because with that, it goes into a whole point of even how this manifests in a lot of the stories of, the polar periods and the hyperborics and the Lemurian and the Atlanteans and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people think that that's, also science fiction. And listen, I think a lot of the ways that it's been interpreted and written, yeah, of course, a lot of it can be very fantasy and it's been used. I mean, come on, like Disney has used it, like, you know what I mean? Like, but how other way are we supposed to potentially try to understand something when we really break it down? That's how our mind works, though. Our mind works in that way with symbols and understanding things. It's just, to better be able to observe it, it's not to get hung up on a definitive, like we were saying, and a belief, because, that's the same
we want
thing.
to feel comfortable. We want comfort. Like if we have an answer for something, now all of a sudden we're comfortable. Like it's like, oh, well, I don't have to think about that anymore. I don't have to think about dinosaurs? Yeah. No, I don't have to think about it. Oh, yeah, cool, big reptiles, meteor hit the earth. Oh, God, Jesus, all that. Oh, yeah. I feel I don't even have to think about it now. Thank you. And I think most people sit back and they accept it because honestly, I think an unconscious fear. Because if you go really deep into something, say like the religion you've picked or whatever topics that you tend to stick to and that you've defined as your beliefs, and you go in and find out like that might not be it, especially people as they get older, it's like it's rough to find out that you might have been living a lie this long. I think it's the whole anti-flat earth people and people that get so mad about it and all that. It's because if that gets debunked and we're not where they think we're at, that destroys the whole paradigm, and all of a sudden we don't know where we're at anymore.
Yeah, we don't even know. Like then it opens up. I think what it opens up more so then is like, because it's such I think because that'd be so overwhelming that it comes to the fact of being like, oh my God, like what's even real anymore?
It takes the safety out of it.
Yeah. And like, listen, I think there's a lot of people that it's like, yeah, it's okay to be like good with where you're at and comfortable with knowing and having, you live a good life and everything and, you're good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a sense of like, if you are engaging in some sort of like, maybe one of these areas, it doesn't necessarily have to be any of this. It doesn't even have to be something that we talk about on the podcast. It could be any sort of thing that has maybe a controversial or like a unknown mystery to it or secrecy to it. But like, if you're interested in that, like, why not pry a little bit? You don't know what you may possibly get out of it. There could be something for you that you get out of it. You can sit there and it might give you a revelation on something completely that you would have never expected it to be so relevant to maybe somewhere where you're at, or something that you had experience with, or a feeling or a thought or a belief or anything. And it can really open up something to you and have what would be, I guess you could say, an epiphany. You can have that type of a revelation in your life to something, or just something just clicks and makes sense. And it's like, why miss out on that? Because of what? I mean, yes, of course, there's a lot of times that people just don't do it also because, like you were saying, that subtle fear maybe, or just the fact of the ignorance is bliss that way. Like, it could be that as well. But if you're somebody who does have interest in things, and it doesn't even have to be, like I said, anything that we talk about, I think that just when that spark of curiosity comes in, you should probably look into it. There's a reason why. There's an emotional trigger happening there that's causing you to have some sort of interest in it. It's almost like you're being driven to go a little bit deeper. And if you kind of cut it off, you don't know what maybe you're cutting yourself off to. It's definitely worth it. And that's where, but that's why when we're saying this about going into it, it's like, don't go into it so much with trying to have a definitive on, an expectation of the answer you're going to get. Have it on the fact that it's like, I expect to get something maybe out of this. I could also get nothing out of it, but it's like, it's something that's going to open my mind more. It's something that's going to create more self-awareness. No matter what, I think it will create more self-awareness, no matter what the topic is.
Sure. No, I think I do have this is one of the theories I stick with is a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety and a lot of misery comes from the fact that people have lost their imagination. They've lost, it's childish to think different, and it's childish to use your imagination to think, oh, something else might be true and all of that. And that's the curse of having too much rationality and being too logical of things, and choosing a belief system and going, well, I have the facts and I have this and this. It's like that. It makes your inner world so stale. It makes your life so boring. Like, allow yourself to wonder. Allow yourself to, don't take it personal that someone, if they have good reason. And not like I always read comments on like any type of fringe, and I know people get angry. I love to watch, and I see what people say, and it's like flat Earth. Oh, well, obviously you're fucking retarded and don't know the mechanics of physics and all this and this and that. And this one guy kept going on every comment and saying that. Well, you just you're just retarded, don't understand physics. And it's like, how do you, like, even if, like, let's say you went to school. Well, right. Well, I read a textbook and I did a few tests and this and that. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but this guy's doing a test too. And it's proving something that gives it opens the door to say, oh, wait a minute. It's like, if you're a detective and you're on the scene of a murder and you see blood on the ceiling or something like that, or like there's some sort of piece of evidence and you're like, like you think you have it figured out, but there's blood on the ceiling though. So maybe he didn't get shot. Maybe he got hit with something, whatever, like bad example, but just point being is that little piece of evidence you don't want to look at because like, oh no, but I figured it out already. So I don't know. Yeah, blood on the ceiling. Yeah, whatever. It was still a gunshot, or it was still this. I can't think of a solid metaphor, but if you get it, what I'm saying, it's like, don't ignore a little piece of evidence just because you think you've solved it already, because you want to move on with it. Like you're comfortable in what you've decided. And when people decide, they don't want to change their minds because they have no imagination, because it's like they just want the answer quickly. Because when you have wonder and you have and you're not too sure about something, now you have to think about it and consider other things. And with religions and bigger topics, those are people's foundations. Yeah. Like, people have decided that these things that I think every day, these habitual thoughts I've chosen, are my foundation. Like, I live from this. This is who I am. And that's when it comes back to the whole spirituality thing of, this is why it's important to realize that you are not the body, you are not the mind, you are the awareness. So I am not Ray and you are not Geo. Now you're separating yourselves from the things that you've defined your life as. And who knows, maybe those things are the root of all your misery and all of your depression and all your fear.
And you can really, and in that point, if you come to that realization, you're able to now go into a more of a direction of something that feels like it's going to align more with you. I mean, let's be honest. That was the whole journey for both of us ourselves, coming to that realization, and the big spark of starting this podcast, and even just the evolution here of how it's gone. Things we thought things were going to, potentially look a certain way, but I think how things have gone, it's like that's also what's helped us be able to understand. That's what's helped us be able to kind of understand even what our purpose is. And like the same thing can happen for anybody, that they can really go into a certain realm of their interest and follow those little breadcrumbs, like of the things that excite them, of the things that maybe they just want to resolve, of not feeling like shit anymore. They don't want to have that misery or that depression or anything and stuff. And like, I mean, I get it. You could go to, you want to get professional help and stuff like that. Absolutely. But it's the same thing in the big world too and stuff. It's like we give too much power and authority to, say, like scientists and, certain scholar type people or
they're humans,
or politicians and stuff.
Humans can be bought Humans
I
can,
was just
can have
going to say
agendas.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Money talks, bullshit walks. So it's like, we don't know, they have people that are funding them, and they don't want to be cut off, and they have reputations, and they have egos too. And they, whatever.
So why would they lie,
the,
right? That's
Yeah.
why. That's why.
That's
agendas,
why. Exactly.
gains,
It might not even be, it might go against everything that they believe in to lie about these things and those truths. But they could be scared. They could be scared, normal human people. They might not even be bad people. Not trying to say that it's like, oh, this politician is necessarily bad. This scientist, this historian, the professor, whatever, anything. They're not bad people, most of them. The fact is that they're just misguided, or they're scared, or they're worried about the earthly, physical, materialistic things sometimes, or they're worried about how they're going to end up being able to show up in life, how they're going to be able to provide for their families or for themselves. That's their concerns, and it's real issues. It's real issues that they got to worry about, of course. But that's where it comes to the point where you have so many independent researchers that, yes, they may be more belief driven, and that's something that you have to watch out for. But
in our community, that's huge.
Yeah. But if you go through independent researchers and plus the mainstream and plus, real referencing type, like solid stuff that's coming through, you can take all those aspects, piece them together into more of a wider variety of understanding. Not necessarily be like, yep, well, because what this person said is definitely it. It's true. That resonates the most with me. If it resonates with you. Great. But it doesn't mean you should just fall upon it as God's word either.
Well, that is shut off your imagination now. Like you've shut off the part that actually is the best part of life.
Yeah, because that's the part where you let it marinate a little bit for yourself within your heart and within your soul to be like, wow, like if I just allow myself to not just close the book yet, I could sit there and go a little bit further and let my imagination go about myself. And this is not to say get caught in fantasy world, but you could sit there and be like, wow. And really, like I said, have those like aha moments about yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be about like, oh my God, this is what the lie could be and they're fucking us. Like, no, it could be just a simple fact like, oh man, this means something more for life and society in general. And it takes the importance. It might also, like for me, there's a lot of things that I felt like was important, and I would get anxiety over things and feel worried about like where I was going in life. And like my worry and my anxiety of those things was the exact thing that was also holding me back from doing anything. And when I came into a lot of this information, it really took me to a point of being like, are you really that stressed out about it? Like to the point, it's like, you're not trusting a certain process. Yes, of course. I think that no matter what, you should be making headway and making attempts, having good intentions, as you're doing it. Absolutely. But it's like, there's certain things that I realized that it's like, wow, it's like, whatever this world that we're in and stuff, there is a lot bigger to it. There is a lot more to it and stuff. And in that case, it's like you stop putting on the importance of looking at somebody else to be like, oh my God, they have their shit together. That's why they have this, and that, and whatever. And you stop comparing yourself. You stop thinking that you have to amount to something that's always in the outside world and stuff. And you start being able to turn yourself inward and being like, well, this is these are the emotions that really truly make me happy. And then you start to realize, well, what can spark that? What kind of memories can I make within myself? What kind of actions can I take that'll actually allow me to hold on to those emotions and of those good emotions that'll keep me in that high vibrational state to be able to get myself to get more things done, to not feel so crippled by anxiety or misery or depression. How can I reconstruct that? And it starts by stopping that whole view of it's important and this image that you have. And, you have to have some sort of like this society, the way it is driven identification and personality, and this mask you got to wear. It's like, you can drop the mask. You are perfectly how you can be just by being the awareness that you are. When you really break it down, yeah.
The name that you're given was decided on. Like, you didn't even pick your name, you know, like you don't even have to be your name. And point is you don't have to live the story that you are, you know, like most people get stuck on the narrative. And that's funny because we talked about that yesterday about narratives. Like, that's what's so inspiring to me is narratives. Like, you know, most people, even with like reading books, like this generation doesn't read a lot of books. And it's like, well, one, that imagination part is real vital with that, but also when you hear stories and you have narratives, it can affect you in a whole new way. But people want to just live out their narrative and the one they've decided on already. They don't even want to explore. They don't even want to explore themselves, let alone a book or someone else's story. But I mean, anything that's always changed my life was always some sort of narrative or impact that happened outside of me, and because I think the world really, that's its purpose is the fact we've talked about it being a mirror. And if you've decided on everything in your life and you just care about poor old woe is me, my story in my body and this and that, and you keep telling yourself that same thing, it's like, well, one, you're experiencing the same thoughts and emotions every day, so you're having the same chemical reactions, nothing's changing. And it's like, you never know, by opening up your mind and listening to somebody that's completely different from you and maybe having some sort of impact on you because of their narrative, their story, something that happened to them, or, you know, it's you're not closed off anymore. Like, let's be more open. Let's have an imagination again.
Yeah, I definitely think I think that's a key point. If like somebody doesn't know where to start, it's like, start by realizing how you're possibly following the crowd or how you're stuck in a narrative and falling out of formation just for a second, just to observe it from the outside, see where it's coming from, see where it's going. And how does that make you feel? Plain and simple. Check yourself and be like, how does that make me feel? Where this is coming from, this direction, this path that I'm on, you know, why am I on it? You know, how did I get here? And when you really take that outside perspective and observe it and really try to release from the identification of, you know, the most deepest parts too, as well, it'll bring a certain emotion. I think those are the things to pay attention to, is how it makes you feel. If you don't feel comfortable about where you kind of came from and where you're going and everything and stuff like that, then that's enough to be like, all right, well, then I need to start looking differently, like looking elsewhere. I need to start, you know, really trying to reconstruct things and whatever. And I think that's a big problem for people, is because they don't want to, it's uncomfortable to start something new. It's uncomfortable to have to feel like,
yeah, they got to finish their story out, you know. I am this. That's what I mean about the whole even name thing. Like, you being the same name, and you know, it's such a dangerous thing that we lock ourselves even to the same name. I'm not saying get rid of it, but most people get, you know, Joe Schmo is the guy who, you know, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, going down to the factory and and living
Joe
out this.
Schmo's a good, hardworking guy. Leave him alone. Right?
He's a good hard guy. I like his boots. You know,
he's got good boots.
He's got good boots.
They're made for walking, but they're walking on that straight path.
They're walking in the same boots.
Yeah.
Maybe Joe Schmo needs a new fucking pair of boots.
Yeah, they're worn out. He's getting blisters all over his feet. Start to stink a little bit. His wife complains.
Yeah, start smelling like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, you gotta take some action.
That Thursday night tuna casserole, maybe getting a little old and nasty, and you know, maybe the Bud Light is a little stale.
Yeah,
but seriously, it's just like, but like living that same story is just keeping you locked in. It is, and going and studying something like spirituality, to me, opened up a whole new world and made me realize, like, my narrative is actually mostly a decision. Like, I mean, I can call myself by the same name, but by me defining my life in the same way every day is me actually deciding that. And most people don't realize it. And why? Could be a calcified pineal gland, or it could just be the fact that they've lost their imagination, meaning they don't even have the ability to think a new thought anymore, because if they do, it's so offensive. How dare you think a different image and word from me, you know, or a different concept. How dare you, you know?
How dare you?
How dare you? Shout out to Ken Wheeler.
You should just put it up.
I might. You know what I'm gonna do when we do this, when we upgrade our presentation here, and we're gonna have a Bill Donahue sample, and we're gonna have a Ken Wheeler sample, or multiple. You know, it's gonna be great. But
so like, are you like, to be able to pull it up? Like, will they be able to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the point.
Even if you were to do it like right now, like.
No, I would need. I need to get one of those podcaster sampler things or whatever. Gotcha. I could hook up my MIDI keyboard. Maybe I'd have to figure it out, but not. Yeah. I don't know. I could figure it out probably.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the long and short of it.
It's really just stop telling yourself the same story and have a bit of an imagination. And the thing is, and I said this on a video I had posted on Instagram, it's like you woke up one day and all of a sudden you're here. And when I say here, you're in this thing, in this body, and you're in this place, and it seems so unclear to where you came from and how weird life really is, from whether you're talking flat or round earth, right? So we'll go globe. It's like the whole ball of water floating around a ball of fire in the middle of nothing. Dude, that's fucking weird. It makes no sense. Same thing with quantum physics and all that. These studies actually show that a particle is actually there, but it's not. It's a wave and a particle at the same time. So it's actually there, but it's not. On top of that, you have, I forget the name of the term or whatever, but like when things are in two places at once. You know, you have these, with the way that quantum physics acts, you know, like the measurements of quantum physics, it makes no sense. That's a bunch of contradictory stuff on top of the fact that you're alive and here right now listening to this podcast, or you're here doing whatever you're doing. The fact that we're here is so weird. Mm-hmm. And then how people lose that. Like, life gets so like, oh, yeah, it's life. Yeah, oh, yeah, we're here. Like, yeah. No. This is what happened when I ate shrooms. And even when I used to smoke weed a lot, mm-hmm. I'd get in those deep moments of like, where am I? Where did I come from? You know, and I know people do ask themselves that, but I think there's a layer or like a threshold people stop at. And I go beyond that every now and then and get really like intricate about my thought about it. Like I really start observing it. And it's like, people will smite others for believing different things, but it's like, humble yourself. Think about how fucking weird life really is. And you don't know. You know, like, where did this come? Like, this created itself? Like, and all the precise things about nature and all that stuff. And then you have thoughts, and there's things like counter space. I love whole Santos, the whole thing on the hard drive concept of you buy two computers, you fill up the one hard drive, and you put a bunch of information on it, and the other one has nothing on it. Which one's heavier? They weigh the same. Where's all of that information? You know, where are your thoughts? Where are your emotions? It's weird. Humble yourself.
But these are the things and that's where it means when it comes to identifying the things. Like, but we use, say like me and you, we may use explaining some of those things as the word spirituality. But people also have certain connotations when they hear certain words, whether it's religious or spiritual, or whether it's political. You know what I mean? There's certain people have a memory of what's being said. They have a certain connotation that they connect with it, that it brings some sort of thought or opinion or belief about it, and it makes them feel a certain way about it. So you may say something that it's like, even just like the word God, certain people are very triggered by the word God because it's not that necessarily that they don't believe in God. There's a lot of people that just are very triggered by, say, the more the religious sense of it because of maybe just what they've experienced in religion, because who was religious and maybe they didn't fall line, in their family who was religious and they got a lot of shit for it all the time, or they were ridiculed, or who knows, that somebody treated them wrong in, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah, associations.
So they're associating it in that way and stuff. And that's the only reason why. But so now, like when we say any of these things that are very mysterious, and it's like things that can't necessarily be given a truth that we may never figure out, or these supernatural phenomenons and stuff like that, like these deeper hidden things, like that's spiritual. So like anything can be considered spirituality. The point of spirituality is that when you can go to that degree to understand that there's going to be these unanswered supernatural phenomenon, but to be able to go into and dive into them, the point of it is that it connects you. You're opening that door to be connected to that mysterious supernatural type, divine type thing that creates all this, the thing that we question all the time and stuff. And it's necessarily that to be able to it'll give more meaning in that sense. It gives a little bit more meaning, or also a little less importance on some of the things that maybe in your life you give too much meaning to. It allows you to be able to have that observer perspective of everything in whole and yourself as a whole, to be able to be like, hey, like I may have been stressing this thing out, or really hung up on something that in actuality, after going over this or looking into this or really contemplating this, it actually is not that important. I don't even know why I was stressing out about it, and it can relieve you in that way. And I think that's where when that happens, that's where you're having what is called a divine transmission or divine connection, and you're raising your vibration. All these types of phrases and words that are being used, especially in this type of community and stuff like that, it's that just to remember that the context of the word is not as important a lot of the times. It's the emotion.
Subjective.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. The feeling that is coming to you. And if you have a negative feeling towards maybe some of these words, that's something for you to look into. Why do I have such a negative feeling towards this? What is it making me think about, do, or avoid doing, or, whatever? And those are the things to look at. And then it could be the simple fact of like, oh shit, well, if I look deeper into it, I actually do believe in that way, but it's just, I just don't see it as maybe the normal definition of stuff. Like to me, like spirituality, maybe to somebody else, like I don't see spirituality maybe the same way as somebody else does. It's my kind of what I'm telling you now, what I'm transmitting now to you is my own kind of openness to the word or the definition of spirituality and stuff. It's not out of a dictionary.
We decided we
yeah.
And I think we have habitually, growing up, we're so used to being told how to think and what to think about it, and that whether if it was our parents or our school system and anything else, or people that we're friends with, we took the definitions and the associations from all of that and the environment and the stimulation of meaning like the things that like sparked thought when we were younger, and we decided them quickly. And we were like conditioned to do that. We're conditioned to constantly, to stop thinking about it and to really just say, this is what it is. And I think that's a weakness, I think, for people. Mm-hmm. It's a weakness to not have the ability to think your own thoughts about it, or to have your own unique way of putting things together. And that's why people are so bot-like now. It's why people are so robotic and think the same, and why they need groups. And it's like, I need the other people to tell me that my beliefs are verified or valid. And and that it's a weakness. It's a weakness to not be able to think for yourself, or at least not realize that you've conceptualized something and that you're just attached to it. Like maybe sometimes people don't even really believe what they're saying, but they just don't want to think about it anymore. I got to go to work. I got to pay the bills. I don't have time to think about what God is, dog, God, Elohim, whatever the fuck, whatever. I don't have time for this. And that's also a, that's secondary to what society has done to us.
Yeah. I think not giving yourself time, like that's the same thing. It's like, you could say the same thing about sleep. It's like, oh, well, I got to do this, I got to do that. But, I can't sleep. Time is money, Well, it's the same thing. It's like, how are you going to be able to be functioning, though, in the same way? Not saying that necessarily, that you need, certain things in order to function in life, but I think you can solve a lot of your obstacles. I think you can move them out of the way by giving yourself that time. It's your downtime. It's your self-care. It's part of self-care, pretty much, to be able to have contemplation with yourself and really looking into what you're feeling and seeing if you're in your window of tolerance during certain periods of your day and everything, and understanding, like, it goes back to it, because then you can understand. I think that's where I'm trying to get at, is that it's like these topics that we talk about, and especially with spirituality and the divine and everything, I think that's more of the deeper understanding that can lead you to something that's more personalized. That's something that's more,
individual.
That's really
unique
individual.
to your own. And I think people don't feel that way anymore. And once again, why? Because they don't have the imagination to do it. They don't have the ability to think for themselves and to even do that. That has been actually cut off. And I actually I do believe that with the school systems, and I think it is designed this way, because they've taken most of the arts out of it. And things that spark some sort of unique creativity to even use that part of the brain. And I think it's a weakness to people. I think that it's another part of the brain that we should have developed as a kid. I happen to be lucky to have a musical family. And I think something like the music, or someone who draws, or someone who's painting, or whatever the hell you do to uniquely create something, you're using this mechanism in your mind to put things together in your own way. And that's the point, is not being so rigid. But we've become so rigid. We're so square. And it takes all the color out of life. It makes it so black and white. And it also makes people very defensive. And I think a lot of it also comes from repressed, unconscious dislike for themselves. Because they know they're not actually doing the things for themselves. And they accepted it at a young age, because to go against the grain was so hard. I mean, my buddy Steve Andalora, shout out to Steve. He had said that he praises me for sticking to, not living that normal life of going to find the wife and stick to the career of go getting a job and all that stuff. He's like, bro, I love music. I love playing music, and what you do and how you're still doing it after all this time. It's like almost like, I might have all of these things. I just got married and all that, but I'm a little jealous because and I praise you for it, because you're doing what you love to do and you're doing what you want to be doing, and it takes courage. And most people don't have that courage anymore because they're so discouraged at a young age. And society and the climb to success and all that it takes so much energy out of you just to survive or just to stay afloat anyway. So the way that even the system in society has built itself up has destroyed that. Like imagination, unique thought, and the ability to be creative, and yourself. People are not themselves anymore, and it's an unconscious dislike for themselves. And it's really, I think, the root of a lot of the suffering. I really do.
Because a lot of times, in order to do those things that you love, like, it's going to take risk, it's going to take sacrifice, and that's something that sometimes people are not willing to do that a lot of the times, because they want the safe, they want the secure. But what's safe and secure is also it's also defined through what we know in just normal life, by our paying our bills and that whole thing, and like having a job and a career. It's like, not to say that you can't do both. It's not to say that the people think that it's like, oh well, I'm not going to be able to be self-sustainable and stuff like that. Well, it depends. It depends how much energy, you're putting into it. Of course, everybody needs to start off somewhere. Somebody, you may be in something right now, and that's what's helping you, put food on the table and, provide and pay your bills and all these things, and allow you to still have some freedoms and fun and enjoy your stuff like that. But that may not be what you want. It's not what you love and stuff like that too. But it's being able to transcend it, to be like, hey, like I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck here. This is not what I have to do. It's just what I'm doing right now to get me to being into what I want to do, what I really love to do.
They're black and white. They and the thing is, and real quick, because I don't want to forget it, because this thought's going to flee, but it's either God or no God. It's either red or blue, right? So we're extreme on the sides. It's either I have to go do what I don't want to do, or I do what I do, or do the things I actually want to do. And we pick extremes, meaning people can never sit in the middle. Why? Because I'm picking this, meaning, oh, I don't believe in God, so I don't believe in God. Or
they think it's also they look at it as like unstable as well.
Yeah, because they're not decided. They're not. They've eliminated the suspension. And the thing is creativity comes out of that suspension, the unknown, the ability to sit there and not know. And the thing is it's like, do I want to do music for a living, or do I want to go? Hey, I'm not saying, going back to like the oh, you don't need the name and to tell yourself the same story. It's like, no, I'm saying don't eliminate actually all the very mundane and simple things of life of you need the name, you need to go work, you need to. No, I'm saying that it's the extremes that's the problem. It's either one or the other.
I mean, think about the whole reason why, though, people look at being in the middle or undecided as unstable, because that's also an indoctrination and a programming of society that tells you that if you're not, married by this age, or it's all time based. It's all like, this goes back to the whole thing about we want to look things on a linear time basis of being like, if you're not married by this time, or with your person that you want to be with, or in this job, or have a career at this point, if you don't have a house, if you don't have this, if you don't, all these materialistic things, society has set it up in a way that when you look at it, you're comparing it on that scale and being like, oh shit, I don't have my shit together, or I'm behind. You're not behind. Your own timing is going to be different than anybody else's timing. You're not just like everybody else. But that's the problem with groupthink. And that's the problem with, there's a collective effort with all definitions of things. Same things, just look at it with words. Like we were just saying, like, in order for us to have an understanding or a definition behind certain words or things and stuff, it's because there's been a collective effort to define that. But it's all made up of different, when you think about it, it's made up of all different types of meanings from different individuals and different things. So why is yours any less? If you have the same way I said, like for me, like I may not define spirituality the same way someone else does, but I'm not going to minimize my definition. I'm also not going to give it more importance, but it definitely contributes to it. Why? Because then it expands that area more. And that's the whole point of to be expansive. Our existence and consciousness, and that's another thing that's being looked into more and more. And I just saw an article about it too, that it's like that, the universe is expanding. They thought that it was just kind of like, oh, it's here, it's there, for the longest time. And then they're realizing, oh, like things are still being created. They thought it was just kind of like, boom, everything happens, set in place. Now they're understanding that it's like, well, no, things are still being manifested. Things are still being created. Things are still in a process. It's not just said and done, how it was thought to be, and it goes the same way with understanding your own life in that way, that it's like things are still happening. Things are still needing to process however they need to process. If you're not where you need to be at for some reason, like it's okay to the degree that you don't have to feel guilt or shame or beat yourself up in that way. But you do need to be able to look at it and be like, okay, well, I'm not happy because of this reason. And if you're comparing it because you're not happy because, everybody else is doing this and I'm over here doing this, that's not really a strong thing to compare on. The stronger thing to be compared on is like what you truly feel. And if you don't know what you truly feel or what you really like or what you really want, and this is something that I struggled with for a long time because I diminished myself in this way too.
A lot of people do. Most people do. Yeah.
And it took a while. And I wanted to get, feel victim and then feel like shit a lot of the times because I was like, why can't I just figure out what I love? Why can't I figure out what I want to do? It was because I was not looking at the different things or going to explore a little bit of, maybe thinking about or doing certain things that would spark a certain emotion in me that I could connect to the emotion, not connect to necessarily the thing itself. Like I'm connecting to what kind of feeling it's bringing up in me. And then having the discernment to be like, okay, well, is that just like pride? Is it greed? Like, or is it true like love? Is it true compassion? And like think that's the scale to put it on. But also people have certain times like real messed up, thoughts on and definitions on what love is. And I think that's a major one to really look into on your own too. What is love? What is the true feeling and meaning of love? And a lot of people have messed up perspectives on what love is also because of the fact that when they've been in an experience in their life, whether it's with a parent or a sibling or a friend or in an intimate relationship, they may have had a certain experience that it was like, oh, I love this person and this person loves me back. But something happens and all of a sudden they hang on to, I thought this was love. So, and it turned out to be like, and they still may believe that it was love. And then it messes up their perspective of what love is. So therefore, they may go into a next type of encounter or relationship with somebody feeling like that they deserve only so much because they maybe were only given very little, that the next person may give them a little bit more, and they're just like, oh, well, this is love. But then they start realizing throughout the relationship somehow maybe or something that it's like something goes wrong. It's like, well, what the hell? I thought that was love and stuff. And it's like, no, because your bar was really low. Love has no, I think, what's the saying? Love is, I just want to find it.
Oh, and while you're looking, I mean, my definition would be more so that love is something that you discover. Like there's no set definition, just like there's no set definition of happiness. There's no set definition of even sadness. We all get similar emotions or vibes from things, but they're all different in every person. So love is really, I just think it's something that's not really definable. It's a certain state, but I think it comes in different, intensities and different ways. And I mean, some people could show their love through, the whole tough love thing, right? It's like a lot of people they give their love through teaching, through being tough, and that's a way of loving someone, opposed to like, all right, so the way that a mom or a dad would love their child, like it's the same feeling, it's the same intention, but the way the dad might love their kid is they're going to be stern and stoic and say this needs to be done and da-da-da, and they're trying to teach them to be responsible, and it's all that. It's like love is, I think, what you want to hand to somebody that you think is going to improve and better their life. That would be my definition of it. Yeah. But once again, that's just my definition of it.
Yeah.
Because of my experiences, and we all have it. But we're so quick to tell someone that their experience is invalid because the way I experienced it was the way that it is. And most people are always about, this is what it is. And it's like, love is a great topic to really weigh that out. Meaning, you can't define it.
Exactly. I mean, I like something, and this is something that you can look into on your own and really like, even just, this is actually in the Bible, in Corinthians. But this is even something that you can further, like it kind of defines what love is. But like even that though, it's like, that can spark something in you a little bit more to kind of still have your own feeling and definition on it and stuff. And what type of experiences, maybe if this resonates with you, what type of experience would equate to these things that it's saying? And it says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. And there's that, it seems like, oh my God, that's like it. That's it. That's the definition. Like that's boom, straight to the point. It's great. It absolutely is. But it's like, I know me personally, like reading it, it makes me think about experiences, whether certain experience I had where there was a lack of those things, or certain experiences that I felt like those things were there, and the feelings it gives. Also times where I felt like I may have given that, or I should have given that, or I didn't, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that really are going on in your mind if you have that certain awareness, to the point where it kind of helps you make a better sound, like reaction to some of these things in your everyday experience. If you can have your own way of looking at them and going a little bit deeper just to see how you process things.
Yeah. I know I'm going to bring this up because I think this is, it's a theory that I totally believe in, and you hear me talk about it all the time. And the way we define things and the way that we interpret them and how it ends up becoming a strong emotion and it ends up being our reality because our perception is reality. I do believe we also feed the world that, in a sense, and because it's a mirror. I love the topic of egregore, like the egregore of basically like an idea is an entity. Like the idea of something is an entity. So if a lot of people believe that something is this and something's that, and they've defined it and they've boxed it in, you know, now that one, they've taken the wonder out of it, but now they've made it more solid in the world. And I think that we feed these, you know, these invisible information banks of, like, you know, the way that we, like how we would all interpret love now. Like if most people think love is either like love is blind, or you know, love doesn't, like it's not existent really in this day and age. Like people don't love each other anymore and this and that. But when we define things and lock them in, I do really believe in the laws of attraction and all that. When we're defining something, we're feeding that entity, we're feeding that monster. It's becoming stronger. And the thing is that's why maybe it's so dangerous to have a massive amount of people believe that this is this and that is that. And if you're going to take classes and trying to learn what love or anything else is from another human being, and you're taking their idea, you're only strengthening a perception or a perspective about it. And we really should go on our inner journeys and define things as we would like to define them, and live our own truths, because we're only going to keep attracting and living other people's truths, and we're feeding these egregores, these pendulums that we're it's alive. It's once it's there and it's strong enough, it's hard to get rid of. And I think the world it needs to rid of the you know, the habit of taking someone else's perspective or perception or something they learned by words opposed to their own experience. You know, because other people's ideas, they're like a virus.
Yeah.
You know?
And then people, like, you know, when they're hearing somebody's words, maybe since we're talking about these definitions, is like more so really to try to, instead of like paying so close attention to like the words, and I think obviously you have to pay attention to words, but like also see, you know, that's what's important about human interaction as well, is because, you know, you should more so look at on in a deeper level when in some sort of interaction, is to be like, what kind of emotion am I getting from this person? What kind of intention do I feel like is coming from them? And that's the thing where it's like you can better be able to understand what maybe you should move closer to or move away from, or maybe you should educate yourself more on, or somebody that is just definitely not seeing to a certain degree that you are. So maybe you need to adjust your approach and things and stuff. Like that's the thing. And then people just are so quick to hear words and be like, you know, and that's why we fight, you know, and that's why people are just like going crazy and miscommunicating and stuff. is because they hear certain words and they have this emotion attached to this word. They get triggered by it and everything. And it's not to say that, you shouldn't be triggered by certain words. It's just the fact that, like, maybe you should really look at the intention behind some of these words coming from the individuals, not get mad at the word itself. It's the same thing, like something with spirituality. Like, I think that it's gotten like the knowledge of like esoteric things as well, and spirituality, like itself as an energy, has been split into like three kind of ways, which is like almost like, we say the light or like white light, and then you have like the black or darkness, and then you also have gray, which is like a mixture. And it's like the light or the white knowledge has been continuously infiltrated, as we constantly go over in the podcast, and it's been attacked by dark forces, and therefore it's like muddied its reputation, and it's also become lost in many ways. But like it's created certain weird things and deities and spiritual principles that start to look as if though they're dark forces and they're black. But while in the same time you have dark forces such as something like Baal, however you want to say it, that are seen as spiritual. You know what I mean? It's like you have dark force type ceremonies that like existed alongside with white esoteric type knowledge. And then there's like an obscuring confusion on the meaning to the masses and to the public. And because it's the fact of how the intentions were used behind these things. And that's why we even go into this, is because to clear it up, to you to take it in your own mind, to realize, to not quickly identify with bad, good, because this is being said. Like the same thing, like the whole thing we said in the beginning, Freemason. Like, I had the same feeling opinion. I was like, Freemasonry is bad. Like, long time ago, Freemasonry is bad. And then as coming up, I was like, what? I don't understand. Illuminati, Freemason, whatever and stuff. But because I went and actually started looking and like wanted to kind of figure it out and understand why there's so much triggering around these certain things, and why it's always so negatively looked at, but then also in the same sense positively looked at. Why is that? It's because of the fact that there's just different hearted people. There's different intentions in these things.
Well, and that in this life, I think really the beauty of it is that there is no set definition to anything. Where we talked about love, or we're talking about anything, even symbols and stuff like that. We give anything the meaning, like we give it with our intention, with our perspective and perception of it all. Like a symbol, like the swastika, right? Yeah. The swastika. This is a good example of how things are. It's a double-edged sword, where the Nazis used it, the Holocaust and all that. It represents, you see it and you immediately think Hitler. But then the word swastika is actually Sanskrit from svastika, which meant good fortune. Mm-hmm. And it also actually meant that it represented the movement of the sun through the sky. And as we've known, I mean, a lot of the occult stuff ends up always linking back to the stars. And it's why I got so obsessed. I started realizing, like, man, like, actually the oldest meanings of a lot of things were like the foundation of a lot of this stuff came from the sky. That's so crazy, Yeah. And it's like a lot of that, like, and it's funny because you look at the symbol and you're like, oh yeah, I could see that. All of a sudden your mind's blown. Like, it's like, oh, I thought it meant that. I was taught it meant that. And I mean, from what I've seen, yeah, it kind of, Hitler, not Nazis, the killing of the Jews and swastika. But wait a minute, way before it was good fortune. Yeah. Crazy how the polarity of that. And so it goes back to anything else can be like that. The occult can be bad. Rituals, black magic, this and that. Yeah, but everything has a good to it. So you have to take everything with a little bit of an approach to the wonder of it, and just step back from the defining of it. Stop defining everything. If something is something in your life and that's it, you've decided, I mean, like, cool, but don't do that with everything. Don't do that with your career. Don't do that with your relationships. Don't do that with what it is you love to do, or like maybe you liked going fishing 10 years ago and now it's fucking boring. You're not good old Paul likes to go fishing every Sunday. If something gets old or you change your mind about it, it is what it is. Same thing with religions. Some people end up not being religious in the beginning of life, and then they end up being religious. They find Jesus and they find God and all that, or vice versa. But things change, and there's no reason actually to fully box things in. Of course, we need order, and we need to settle down every now and then and come down to earth. That's also a part of the game. But I'm always going to stick with, but we don't do that enough. Mm-hmm. Or we get delusional about the wrong things.
I think if there is to be any sort of definitive of anything, it should be more so of having a definitive when it comes to your having a pure, grounded, genuine approach to how you're observing things. I think that's really the only definitive maybe that you should have is that, but it's once again, coming from purity, coming from love, coming from compassion, coming from an openness, coming from things of that standpoint. And all those different things of what is pure, genuine, loving, compassionate, all those things can also have different meanings to different people, but it's the fact of doing that maybe so when you're in the observation mode, like what you just said. You just said how a lot of these meanings behind certain things and symbols and experiences came from observation of looking at something, whether it was in the sky and the stars and everything, or just things in life, and meditating on the feeling of it. And whether you're grabbing some sort of purity out of it and you're grabbing something that goes beyond physical reality, that's something that's more in a spiritual realm, and that's something so more, what you consider to be divine and stuff, that's what created that positive emotion. That's what created that type of context behind that thing. And that, gets developed as time goes on as well, whatever that thing may be. So, that's the thing. Somebody, pure happiness to somebody could be like, oh, having $1 million. Somebody else, pure happiness can be like having quality time and fun with my family. That could be just as equivalent to that person having $1 million. And it's to understand that, hey, we may not agree, but it's the fact that because you're following that intention of or that feeling of what it is, and you're using it for good in your own life, then I can respect that. That's where it comes to the point, though, like where we see a lot of the things that are going on in the world now. It's like, people have their feelings about something, but they feel like that it's like, if you don't feel what I feel and you're not supporting me, or you're looking at it differently, or you just like, it's right away, you're against me. And it may not necessarily be that. Yes, absolutely. There is, conflict and people being against each other in those ways and stuff. But it's like, or they feel like they're lacking a certain respect or a recognition. But it's like, do those people even look even deeper from where that's coming from, where that emotion is? It's also coming from a pedestal standpoint of being like that. My feelings are so valid that it's like anybody who disagrees is disrespectful, is racist, is a bigot, is anything. And it's like,
they lack the imagination, though. That's why, because meaning they don't have the ability to think that what that other person's path and story and where they ended up at and why, they don't know. Like, people tend to forget, like, life could take you on some sort of roller coaster, and you could end up at if someone, like with people that are religious and who smite people who don't believe in Jesus, it's like something could have happened to him where life really was a little cruel, and that's just the phase that person has to go through to actually find God again.
Yeah.
Meaning sometimes, like, don't judge anybody at what they're doing as long as they're not murdering someone or, doing rape or anything like that. But more so is like, I think people could have, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it more so is like, if someone is bitter or they're miserable or they don't believe in God or they don't believe what you believe, it's like, you don't know what led up to the point that they believe that, and maybe it is that they're in this state because actually, so if you believe in God and that person say doesn't, what if that's actually God's plan to put that person at that like, you don't know what this divine intelligence is doing to anybody and why. The only thing I could really say is and I know this, is that disconnection from it is so strong, and that is due to influence. And that is, I think that's not that it's not God's plan. I think everything is, in a sense, the universe's blueprint. But I do think that we have the ability to alter and help God. That's where you have the children of God and the light workers and stuff. I think those types of people are to put things back on that evolutionary standpoint of moving forward. And when it gets too extreme and things don't go forward enough, or everything gets a little too disconnected, I actually think that that's where the free will aspect of life and us having an effect on it, I think that's us slowing the evolution of God down, meaning like we do have an effect and people don't realize that we do have that effect, So
because
No. I mean, that's basically it. But also I'm saying, so like to really relax on jumping at a person because of what they believe or where they're at in their life, and why worry about it and stop telling people what to believe and trying to. I think a lot of people really do it because they want to feel. Once again, it comes back to a fear and this lack of safety, and they need other people to think just like them. And I don't understand it because there's times, because I'm such an open thinker and not a lot of people think like I do, or like both of us, because we think alike. But in a sense, it does get lonely in here sometimes, or just in my mind, because, but I don't have the ability to just go think like the rest of the population just because I want to feel comfortable. But most people can sit in that. And I think that's the problem,
Yeah, exactly. And then people get used to it. People get comfortable, but yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, like, these like two different like standpoints of people that, when they're going through something or they're trying to express themselves in whatever way that they're coming from, some sort of emotion and stuff, I think there's the lack of trying to have a sort of empathetic approach in a way. And I think it's not to say that you have to hear somebody out, because somebody could use whatever they're feeling and their emotion and do something that's more harmful. Like, you can be some sort of activist for some sort of rights or anything and stuff, but your approach could be real off about it, that actually, like, you're trying to bring unity, but in the way you're going about it, you're actually creating more hostility, more of a divide and everything in that sense, all because of the fact that you're lacking the process. You're lacking the process. And in this day and age, with life being constantly fast and constantly evolving and moving and heavy, like, I think that's a really important thing to come back to is the grounding. Giving the time to process. People are so hyper aware of themselves. We say awareness, to have awareness of yourself and your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings, and to be aware of just your existence. But I think there's a point that people become hyper aware. We know there's a lot of hypo awareness where people are under aware, but there's this hyper awareness to all these different areas of an individual that causes them to not allow themselves to process what's coming in, not process whether it's something that they're viewing or experiencing, whether it's emotion based or mental or physical or something like that, to process it in a sense that's going to allow them to, take it in. And we know that no matter what, we're projecting it out somehow, to take it in the process of being like, hey, like, this, no matter what, is going to go into the outside world. However, I'm taking this in. That's the type of awareness to have, obviously. And to be like, well, here's the thing, like, that's why understanding this stuff, it's like you start to get that it's like, no matter what's coming in, like, your reality is very dependent on what you're putting out. So if you're not processing it and you're just kind of going off of the jump and the hype of the moment and stuff and everything, you're putting it out there, that's a fucking environment that you're setting up for yourself as well too. You know, it may not seem like that sometimes, but I think in the overall, yeah, it is. It most definitely is. And you start projecting, because then all of a sudden it's like, I don't get why I can't see eye to eye with this person. They're like, I'm fighting constantly with my spouse or whatever. And so, well, is it because maybe just whatever happened? Yeah. And they could have been in the wrong about something, but are you perpetuating it and making it, you know, fester into something more annoying and bigger and, you know, angry or sad or whatever, because of the fact that you're not taking the time to allow it to settle and to process it and to be able to approach it in a more grounded, pure, genuine, loving way. That's how you do actually. You may not have control over somebody else and what they say or what they do or how they act, but you do have control over how you perceive it. You have control over how you take it in, how you process it, how you're going to respond, how you're going to react. You do have that ability. So why not have an awareness about that? And why not be, you know, and understand, being aware of being too hyper aware? It's literally all that. That's how deep it rides. But I think that it's, you know, really, it all comes back. Like, even all this very wild stuff that we get into constantly, even with the past episodes about the Protestant Reformation, Vatican, and the Jesuits, and all this stuff, and the esoteric knowledge and its movement, and like the secrecies and all that stuff. Yeah, I think that opens up being able to understand how it all trickles down to the common folk, how it all trickles down to individuals, how it trickles down to you, and how your thoughts process is, how your reaction process is, how your belief process is, all these things. And that's where you can start to make headway with yourself. Don't worry about the outside world.
So letting go.
Don't necessarily worry about changing that stuff.
Change yourself. And your immediate environment and the things that, you know, like, you know, I've always noticed what I've really felt this is when since I've been a kid, I'm like, why is everyone in everyone else's shit? Like, why does everyone care?
Well, they might be Italian.
Right. But like, seriously,
I put a context, but go ahead.
No, it's context, but still, I get it. No, you're right. Now I'm around it. But you know, there's just this infatuation to try, to affect the world in a way where we want to skew and mold other people, and it's because we want to mold the world and make it a place that we're comfortable in, and we want to make it too known that, like, when we wake up tomorrow, we're going to walk out the door and this jerk, you know, they're going to have a fucking mask on and I'm going to feel safer because they're going to have a mask. So I want them to do what I want to do because it's going to make me feel a certain way. And we're just so obsessed with just making things ours a little too much. And it's because it comes from that rigid side of it. It doesn't come from the, like, you know, like, maybe if watching the news, it's like they tell, for every 11 stories, the 12th one is the only good one. And it's like the world, it's like, why is the media constantly trying to make me look at the world like as if it's such a god awful place? Yeah. And they're doing that to so many people. And it's like, they're really trying to, like, I see that as very obvious that TV makes me, its agenda is wanting to make me look at the world in a certain way. And it's funny because then people then actually end up doing that to each other. You know, teachers try to make their students think a certain way, and politics, you know, make people try and think a certain way and all that. And it's because they give these false promises and stuff. And it's like, but we want to make everybody else think the way we do, or at least have them fit our mold. And it's why the infatuation. Like, figure something out that you like to do. Go do it and shut up. And that's really it. Like, no, if we need to fix the world, then let's fix it. But let's stop telling people what to believe is not it's not the solution. It's figuring out a way to have a society to fit in all of those beliefs and all of those molds into one mold where everyone can work in coordination, but then at the same time live their truth. And that is all. And of course, just base like ground knowledge of just don't harm anybody or do anything stupid. And I think at this point, humans should really know at this point in the journey, you know what's right and wrong, and you know what not to do. And as long as you know the things of what not to do, go do the things that you want to do. And that's it. And don't affect anybody else's free will. That's it. And then let's all grow together and help each other out, because then we can make the world a better place. I mean, how hard could it really be?
Well, I think that's a big thing too for people, because they feel like they have to have some sort of meaning and purpose in life. And, you know, they get looked at as something gets brought to their attention that, oh, something's wrong here. You know, something is broken in this aspect of life and needs fixing.
They're the ones that are broken.
And no, but like, ready. So like, say something that's on the news, like, oh, I don't even want to use anything specific, but like, there's something wrong with society, right? We're getting told that something's wrong with society, and maybe somebody, like you're saying, like a teacher or something. Well, I have the ability to shape and mold young minds.
I'll say it. Critical race theory.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it. But it's like they something like that. It's like, okay, like I have the opportunity. The intention might be good, where it's like I have the opportunity to do and help for the future generations to fix something, and but then again, that's where the purity line starts to get crossed, is because like, okay, but your intention is because you want to do that, but also is it because also that you feel like you doing that, you're contributing, helping, and it's giving you meaning and purpose in your life? I'm sorry, as deep as that is, that's still surface level to purpose and meaning in your own life. You should be able to find purpose and meaning in your own life without having to do something in that way. You already have a purpose. You already have a meaning. Whether you know it or not, it's already there.
The problem is it's actually simple. Mm-hmm. Meaning the purpose and the meaning. But the problem, growing up and watching these movies and having these celebrities and having these people that do these superhero-like things, whether it's sports, whether it's actors, whether it's concepts from movies and superheroes and things that we grow up like, we glorify things. So we think that our purpose has to be something that's glorified.
Yeah. Something
like
great.
we have, right. Like we have to affect, maybe your purpose in this life is really just to affect your family. Yeah. Maybe you're not here to go on this global stage and try and do, maybe it's just, you're meant for your immediate environment, and that's what you're here for. And then actually by doing that, you're playing your part, and that's going to ripple out into the world and end up being the actual thing that does have a bigger impact. You just don't get to see it. But people want to, go and throw Molotov fucking, they want to go destroy a city and kill people and all that because they think, well, that's my like I want to change the world and mold it to what it is. So I'm going to go forcefully do it instead of working in coordination, and really using. At this point, we're so smart and we have the technology, and we could talk to anybody in the world. The primal, like the acts of violence and all that stuff is like, we have gone backwards, and how? The irony of it.
Yeah. It's because we're just furthering disconnection from ourselves. We're furthering the ability to sit with our own minds. We've become so bored and uncomfortable with ourselves to the point that we need all these outside things.
Arousal.
To stimulate us, to make us feel worthy, to make us feel appreciated. that we have to find it all somewhere else. But in actuality, the place you're going to find it the most is within yourself. And to be able to be like, you know, you don't have to necessarily do something so great and spectacular to have that feeling. Like, you just need to work on understanding what is a great feeling for you. What is a great feeling for you that helps you be able to project a better you into the world, because you are part of society. So you want the best version of yourself to be involved in society. And that's only going to happen is if you feel good. If you feel good, if you're thinking good, if you are moving in the world good, you know, and if you're interacting in a certain way, and it doesn't necessarily take some sort of spectacular action. It just takes simple thinking and processing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it.
No, it's exactly right. And it's just, instead of, you know, maybe also people want to be seen and they want to be heard, so they go force it. So by going on a march or a parade and all that, yeah, like some things fine, like want to take a stand and go, you know, scream for your rights and all that. But if you're just doing it because you're so unhappy with yourself that you want to scream at the world and say, look at me, like I feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it's selfish, egoic, cries out for attention. It's not. It's not for the reasons of wanting to make the world a better place. It goes back to it's trying to instill our will and force other people to do what we want them to do because we're so unhappy with ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing. It's like, it's okay to like go out and celebrate something that, you know, that really resonates with you, but also like you're saying, like you got to come from a standpoint of being like, I'm celebrating this type of feeling and these types of great experiences I've been blessed with because of these certain things. Let me be a role model. Like, you know, I'm a role model to myself. I don't mean necessarily being, once again, some sort of egoic type of thing, but it's like, I'm going to show up for whatever this outside thing is or celebration or anything. You know, I'm going to be part of this group to be a, you know, to be a part of it and to be a role model in the sense that it's like, you know, I'm leaving an openness of myself that if anybody is to interact with me in this group, they're going to see some sort of pure intention, you know, not that you're going forcefully to go out and give your opinion and for whatever and stuff. Just maybe somebody may see you in a different way and be like, huh, I've never seen somebody in this scenario and stuff act the way you do. Well,
could be inspiring.
Yeah, it's something that you end up just sharing with them and they're like, wow, I never realized that in some sort of way. And you could just end up having a great conversation and you may have opened up their mind to something else and helped them see. And there you go. It wasn't this great spectacular thing necessarily or whatever. It wasn't even something that you went out and had to forcefully do or anything. You just were going there because you were in something that allows you to feel that thing that you want to feel, and you're allowed to celebrate something that you're proud of and happy of and stuff like that. Then it's like, you know, not that you're doing it to spite anybody or to push your beliefs or opinion on anything. It's about the fact that you're celebrating it for you because of what it gives you.
Right. Right. And on top of that, if you want to talk spiritual and talk energetic and all that, it's like, if your intention, if you have bad intentions, like if it's your actions are coming from a bad place and you're looking to harm or instill your will in something and force it to happen because you're unhappy with it and all that. I mean, at this point, one thing I can agree with spirituality is your energy ripples out and it creates more of it. And misery loves company and all that. So if you want to make the world, once again, making the world a better place or forcefully trying to mold it the way that your ego wants it are two different things. You know, making the world a better place is going to be acts of unselfishness. You know, it's just like you don't want to go out and march just because you're going to feel better. You want to go out and march because it's going to help. It's just going to improve the state of the world and other people, but from the actions I've seen in the past year, I just see a bunch of selfish people walking around in a crowd. It's not, there's not this gigantic movement of good intentions and energy and all that, and that's not rippling out. I mean, has the world gotten better or has it gotten worse over the past year?
Yeah,
I think we can all answer that. So the thing is are we doing the right things? Has anything we've done this past year worked? Or in the past 30 years, has it really worked? Or can we just look at the results here and say, something's up? But to just fly off the handle and then start trying to destroy the world with your bare hands and say, well, the old way's got to go and fuck the system and all that. It's like, yeah, I agree with you on that kind of, but we have the abilities now to talk and converse, and all the information that you need at hand, and it's all that. Let's just figure it out and be open up your minds first. The first step to any change is changing yourself and letting go of the past and letting go of the things that have gotten you to this point. But people come from that, actually. The thing that harmed them and whatever, they're actually, their actions are stemming from that, unresolved nonsense going inside, going on inside.
They're coming from a very triggered, traumatized, angry standpoint. It's not to say that you can't be angry about something. Yeah. But it's like,
anger is important.
But if you're angry, that's your driving force to put you in that position to move you forward, to be like, I want to figure something out. I want to resolve something. Well, in order to resolve something, though, you can't just keep feeding off just the pure anger. There's got to be rationalization behind it. If you want it's anything to actually be fixed or changed or heard or anything, you have to be rational about it. You have to be coming from a grounded place, an open place as well. Even if in order, maybe you're on the opposition and it's some other sort of group or anything or person needs to be more open with you, you have to understand that they're not necessarily maybe going to have that openness. But if you want to even possibly have a chance at them being open and really, really, really hearing what you're trying to say and really being able to attach with you on a certain pure emotion that really is going to tug on their heartstrings the way something may tug on your heartstrings, you got to get them to that point. You don't want to just feed the anger more. You don't want to sit there and just scream in somebody's face about it. That's fucking doing nothing. You're doing absolutely nothing in there. All you're doing is just making people more mad and making them label you as you labeled them. And just, that's it. That's your definition of that type of person. Anybody who has this type of view this way, they're this, and that's how it is. And fuck them. And no agreement.
Actually,
where's the resolution there?
That's where you would step out of your imagination and jump in the logic. So there's that balance, like sometimes maybe people are using their imagination to feed that delusion that's making it worse. And it's like, balance that out, So once again, use your imagination to find the things that are improving your life and what can I do but then be rational. Like, don't let the emotion and the imagined thing that's like overtaking you, whether good or bad, don't come just from that. Process that and say, okay, what do I have to really do now to get that rationally? Without harming anybody. Two, if I do it in a way where it's logical and that I don't go destroy something, it might happen quicker, actually. You know what I mean?
People get too defensive, and it's not to say that you can't protect yourself. Yeah, protect yourself, obviously, protect your energy, but to be so defensive, it's just creating more walls, more barriers between people. And it's like, instead, I think the best way to break down a communication wall or something like that is by asking questions, by literally showing a genuine interest in wanting to understand why somebody has the different opinion they have. And seeing if you could find some sort of common ground. If you could find some sort of common ground, that's the thing to hold on to. That's the thing to maybe dwell more in in that conversation.
Flat Earth.
And you realize,
flat Earth thing. Ready? Can't we just agree to disagree?
That we don't.
Meaning, well, not even that. Okay, because we don't. We really don't know. I mean, unless you were the astronaut or any like, if you were the person up there and you looked down and you saw it, I'll take your word for it. I will. Not that I actually wouldn't, because I wasn't there. But the thing is I'll take considerations, but let's just agree to agree on it. And it's like, I laugh at the whole, like, that battle, and I'm really obsessed with it right now, because like as much as the topic's fascinating, the way people handle it are just as fascinating. And from both sides, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
The people that are defending it, and then it's like the emotion that's attached to it. It's a great example of like, is this helping like at all? Does it matter? If you disagree, what's the point of going on the thread and the comments on the opposite side and trying to convince the person that they're stupid or that they're fucking retarded, as I've read over and over again? What's that really doing other than stirring the pot? Yeah. And you know how human beings are. Now you're getting the person that believes in the opposite of you to actually want to now believe in the opposite of you more. Yeah. Because egos come into play, and it's like, well, now you're telling me what to think, and fuck you, now I'm going to believe it even more of what I'm saying. And now it goes back and forth. And that's just not how things are going to evolve. It's child's play, and it's making the world worse. And it's like, just accept the fact that someone doesn't think what you think. And it's like, it's not like someone's like, you love your family, and then imagine you love your family and someone's going, you're fucking retarded for loving your family. Why would you believe that loving your family is a good thing?
I might be sometimes. Just kidding.
Well, like, you know what I'm getting? It's very exaggerated, but to make the point that like someone came to a conclusion, and now if you're going to tell them not to believe that, the words are not going to do anything. Let people discover things on their own, So
life's crafty on its own. It'll hand people a very cold dish of life lessons.
Yeah, stop worrying about it. Fuck it. Who cares? Even they believe the Earth's round, and they believe they're on a ball spinning this spin, all the whole pitch. It's like, okay, yeah, they believe that.
Listen, you can understand why people do. You can understand. Shit. I mean,
both sides. Let them go.
Let's just think about it. We're all fucking victims here, but it's like, do we want to play into that role? Like, no. And that's the other thing. Just everybody just needs to stop being trolls in life, plain and simple.
Yep. Yep. Simply said.
And it's not just on the internet, just in life in general.
But that projection, man, they have to attack, because they actually don't like either their own lives or themselves to that much, that they need to make someone feel the way they feel. So, and it's like that. That is a solid belief of mine, is that the way people talk to other people is actually the way they talk to themselves, and the way they treat other people is the way they treat themselves, whether conscious or unconscious. So it's like, that's what that really shows me, is when I see someone being a piece of shit to somebody else, they're a piece of shit to themselves, and they just either they don't realize it or they know it. And they're on that frequency, and they're trying to bring people down to that frequency. It's like, no, come listen to my radio station. The radio station filled with hate and misery and this and that. I need you to come down here with me. I need more people down here. I'm getting lonely, feeling like shit just by myself.
It goes back to the things that no matter where, you could be high up in a higher positive vibrational.
Doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter where you're at.
You be in a lower one. Loneliness is lonely. You could be lonely in that high state, or you could be lonely in that low state. Nobody wants to be alone.
I've been in both.
So it's like,
you're right.
So people don't want to, can't face that too. That's the other thing is really, the feeling of being alone. Like, no matter what, you're not alone.
Yeah.
In actuality, and that's where it comes to where it goes more beyond into what, a spiritual type sense, that you're not alone. None of us are. None of us are alone.
What's beating your heart or breathing when you're not breathing? Something's doing it. You're not alone.
There's a force.
Your cells are actually alive, keeping you. They're doing their own conscious thing. You know, like what's transporting the nutrients to your body. You know, what's pushing the shit down to your asshole.
Yeah,
you're not. Imagine if you did that. You're not though. So the thing is something's there with you. Even if it got to that point, you're there with your body and this intelligence, and you're in it. You're not the body. If you were the body, you would digest your own food. So you're not the body. And the thing is people forget that there's this presence and something doing things, you know, something put the air here and something put your lungs there, and in coordination it works, and there's life, and that it proves that you're not alone, you know.
Yeah. That's it. There's life, there's nature as well and stuff. And it could be the fact that it's like you're lonely because of the cases that you feel like you don't relate with most people, or you know, maybe you're in an awakening process of your own to be like, oh, well, I just feel like I don't have community. I feel like I don't have really any genuine relationships with anybody. And it's lonely because it's like anybody who I feel like I do kind of come around to, it's like, I just feel like not happy or drained, and you think that there's something wrong with you, but it's not that. And it's not for you to judge them to be like, oh, well, they're lower than me, or like, you know, I'm just too above them or anything. No, it's about the fact that like, hey, just, you know, maybe you can't have the certain conversation or the feeling that you need to have, whatever. And that's okay. That's okay on your part. That's okay on their part as well. And you may know what you need, what you want to be experiencing when you have interactions with people. And it's not to say that you need to keep a really high expectation or too low of an expectation, but to understand that you're not alone, because there are other people that you can mesh well with, and they will show themselves and they will come up in your life in the right time, as long as you're showing up in your own life at the right times, in the right places, and doing the right things within yourself. That environment will start to manifest itself. And that's where you realize that you're not alone. You may be or feel alone in a moment, but that moment in all time is happening simultaneously. So it's like that loneliness will fade.
I always notice
especially when you get comfortable with yourself.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is with that, I was about to say, when you do that, I feel like life starts to work itself out and things do get better. Yeah. I've always noticed when I finally have like let go and I've surrendered, you know, there's a time to instill your will on life and do things. And that means you can, you know, like get up and go to the gym, or get up and, you know, go do something that you have to. Of course, you have to do it with your willpower. But then there's that other side of it. Comes always back to life with that funny ass paradox of, you also gotta, there's black, but there's white. You gotta do things, but then sometimes doing nothing is the answer. Meaning sometimes and what I mean by that, not just doing nothing, but having this surrender, you know, just, okay, you know, this is what it is. And I've always noticed when I've let go of all that resistance, anything that I was concerned or worried about, it works itself out. And it's real, you know, and I still to this day, and knowing this and have practiced it, you, of course, forgive yourself, because you're going to get caught up in the bullshit again. It happens. It's a part of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constant adjustment. You know, that I have slip ups where, you know, maybe something I'm saying here, I have slip ups all the time throughout my days, where if somebody was to watch this and then see me act a certain way, where I have one of those moments where I consider a slip up, they could be like, wow, it's contradictory to something he just said and stuff.
Yeah, modern day would be like, he's a fraud.
Yeah, no, but it's like
him.
The point is, do you catch yourself in those moments? Do you know how to change that situation, change your attitude around in those scenarios? Do you have the awareness to know that you're falling into that trap and you're falling into something that's just very like below a vibration that you don't want to be at? I
do that a lot, actually. Yeah, my mouth gets me in trouble. Like, I have an intense inner world. My emotions can rile up, and I'll fucking talk to some of my family members or friends or whatever. I'll have some, you know, I'll act out and be fucking real nasty. And but the thing is I always return back to go, yeah, I was wrong. Like that, I always catch myself, and I'm saying I do. I have such good introspection, and I will praise myself. My South Node and Leo's kicking in. I'll praise myself on the fact that I know when I fuck up, and I always cover my ass. I always will say, I thought about it, and I might not fully say like, oh, but you were right completely. I'll say this is why I felt that way, and I actually still maybe might disagree with you on certain things, but the way I acted, complete nonsense. And of course, and like we have to own up to shit, and that's it. Forgive yourself too. Like people have a problem with forgiving themselves. Forgive yourself. Imagine if I sat here and thought about all those things I did, but it doesn't also have this. It doesn't give me some lack of validity on anything I've talked about on a podcast or anything that's been more enlightening. That takes that away from me. We are human, and that is it. Let's understand that.
Exactly. And like those things, whatever, how you may have acted or how you, whatever, if you continue to perpetuate them, then I mean, of course, then, people might start defining you as that type of person and stuff. But like any sort of mistakes you made, wrongdoings, how you've hurt somebody in the past and stuff, like, it doesn't necessarily define who you are. It does not define who you are. Especially if you're making adjustments to be aware of what you've done and stuff like that. And it's not to sit there and constantly reflect on it and beat yourself up on it. Once again, it does not define you. You can change as a person. You can change how you treat yourself. You can change how you treat others. And that's the thing to focus on. Not about, oh my God, I'm so terrible. I did this wrong. And I constantly fuck this up. And this is why my life is shit. No, your life is shit because you keep going over it and playing it over and over and over and over in your mind. And there's an energetic, emotional energy that's in motion behind those memories. It all goes on with the hippocampus and it starts to release certain hormones as well. And therefore you're reliving that again. And therefore you feel like you never left.
Yeah, and the body doesn't know what's real or what's not. No. The subconscious doesn't know. So, I mean, like, and we all know this because, I mean, you could think about, you could not be hungry, and then you think of something you ate last night and you love it, like with sushi, right? All of a sudden, oh my God, my thought literally changed.
Don't say sushi.
Oh, dude, I had a tiger roll down here. There's a shrimp tempura or a tiger roll tempura. And whatever these crunchy little things are on, dude, it's fucking candy. Whatever they are, it has been, I'm in love. But the thing is so now I just made Geo hungry.
Yeah, I associate emotion behind it.
Right, but there's no food here. But the thing is a thought will change the body. And that goes with anything. You could think of something that you were miserable about 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden you're down again. And it's like, it's real easy. So yeah, it's going back again to stop telling yourself the same story because you're reliving the same memories. You're living in the past, and now your body's living in the past, and now you're actually just reliving it emotionally, and then you're in that state again. And then now your actions are affected, and now your lives are affected. Your life and life decisions are now affected by it. And so learn to just forgive yourself and surrender to it. I mean, if you were a piece of shit at some point in your life, then you were a piece of shit. I've been a piece of shit. Yeah, whatever. No, whatever. Stop.
It is what it is. I mean, you could either relive it constantly and keep perpetuating that same piece of shit type person or thoughts or feelings that piece of shit person maybe was, or you can completely separate yourself and be like, yeah, well, I'm not that person now. I'm not that anymore, and here's how I'm not.
It's just an idea. Anything, actually, if anything, right? The whole story that you've lived out at this point in the present moment now is actually only just a concept. Like the past is gone. It's gone. So now anything you're living today that you're defining something as is actually just an idea. That's it. You're just agreeing to an idea, and you can change it at any point. But trying to go force other people before you've changed it with yourself, going to try and change other people to do the same thing that you're not, like for example with racism or anything like that, like people are trying to make the world less racist, but yet they're being racist,
creating more of it.
They're being in the act of actually saying racist things, and I watch it, I'm going, you're not getting rid of racism. All you're doing is just trying to be spiteful and get make it even. You're trying to make, and the thing is, I get it. Like that projection is like what most people I believe do is they're trying to get the other person to feel what they felt.
Yeah.
So they're trying to, it's almost like forcefully trying to make the other person empathetic, but in the wrong way, in the exact opposite. Like, don't try and make the other person feel what you felt because then they'll understand me and you see how it feels. And it's like, no, like there's a better way of doing that instead of projecting it. But the world's really good at that. And the world's really good at projecting because they're living out their old stories. They're not letting it go and all that. Or they were treated a certain way. They're attached to something that was done to them. And now they want to go, they come off like they want to prevent it or change it, yet they're actually bringing more of it.
Yeah.
Because they're attached.
Exactly. They're helping create that same reality that they don't like. Yeah. Plain and simple.
Just like the story of the bully, the kid who was bullied ends up becoming the bully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karate
because they had to protect themselves. Right. Yeah. So like, because they had to protect themselves from the big bad bully, in that way, they've taken on the vibration of the bully and then they become that. I have a few friends that admittedly grew up like that.
Yeah.
I won't say names, but if he ever listens to this, which he has such an ego that I know, and I love him to death, but he won't listen to this probably. But because I know him way too much. But he's comes off at times. He's pompous and he's always right and whatever. But that's because when he was younger, he was always told he was wrong. He was always bullied and all that. But he ended up becoming what he despised. And in today's world, when it comes to anything with racism or any of these very touchy topics, that's what they're doing. They're bringing more of the thing that hurt them into the world and don't realize they're doing it, or do.
So, in the words of Elsa from Frozen, let it go.
There's a really good metal cover. That's all. It's awesome.
I heard that. Yep.
Yeah. Like heavy though. It's fucking heavy.
I mean, maybe a different version. I don't know if it's the same thing, but
it's funny. It's not to change it too much. Actually, well, yeah, we've been riding the topic, but even with music and culture too, I do have this thing where I'm watching the culture have, like, in the way entertainment is and music, and I use rap a lot because, I mean, like, rap's basically the most popular music, at least in our generations. It has such a profound effect, and but it's not helping the world change because it's keeping people actually in a conceptual state. Like, we're listening to music that makes us feel good, that are talking about certain things, and it ends up becoming actually a truth. And that's instilling racism. That's instilling hate. That's instilling relationship issues, and it's like, man, we got to change everything. Like, we got to just let it go. Like, we are really telling the same story as a culture too. So like, we got to really become aware of everything that's going on and step out of our projection and really find ourselves, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where collectively, if we all take that introspective look at ourselves and really what we're doing, how we're just showing up in the world, then that's making headway. You ain't got to necessarily go tell anybody how to think, feel, or do and stuff, or beat somebody over the head with a Bible and stuff. You gotta take that step first to yourself and attract the people that want that. You're going to naturally just attract those that are interested in your approach. You have a uniqueness to you because you're not visceral. You have a uniqueness to you because you're very open-minded or level-headed and stuff. And I think that's what gets people wanting to even hear what you have to say.
And don't be afraid.
Or actually giving a shit about your opinion because they see us. Yeah. Because they may see a certain calm in you that they're like, fuck, I want to be that calm. I want to know how to have that type of peace. Like, what the hell are they on? I want to be as cool as a cucumber as you are. Well, if only you knew that this cucumber has been chopped up and tossed in many salads. And I don't mean that in a weird way.
Cucumber might be a pickle.
Yeah, exactly. It might have been pickled.
Soaked in vinegar, stinky and bitter.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's enough to know that.
But it's still delicious, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I want it to be fresh. So you know what?
No, right. Well, and to really just, we got to just get back into exploration.
Yeah.
And honestly, I do feel like we'll carry on with this in the future episodes and expand and even get esoteric about it, because I have a lot of concepts and things about it and a lot of discussions I want to have, stages of the awakening that people are going through, and and understanding things more deeper on like a not just psychological but esoteric with this stuff, because we are harboring in the energy too, and there is that side to things, but also to remember that when you're listening to this podcast or you're listening to anything else, just take things as concepts, understand them, but never get attached to anything. And we should just be in a state of learning and wonder. Like, let's just be wondrous. Let's be wondrous about the earth's shape. Let's be wondrous about if astrology works or not. Let's be wondrous. Like, dude, life's fucking boring otherwise, really? So, like, shit, let's have some fun. Lighten it up.
That's it. Be the observer.
Yeah.
Be a healthy observer. Yeah. It's really how I can shorten it. Right.
But I do feel an ending coming to the episode. So I'm feeling the drift and all, but like, yeah, definitely, more so probably one of my favorite talks, because we're more and more coming into these as we really want to discuss our thoughts on things instead of just bringing things to talk about when it comes to factual approaches and stuff. But we do want to, we have this idea in our minds as we want to be teachers and students all at the same time, and then also have these open-minded talks, because then maybe by you guys listening to us, you'll start doing that. And you realize that, it's not a bad thing to explore and have an imagination and to be wondrous about all these crazy topics and all of this stuff. And let's have fun again and just get out of our belief systems and out of our rigidity of, what story we're telling ourselves. And if we come to that conclusion, we can evolve. We could finally evolve and come together and have a good life and a good time again. It's not forever that we get to live this life, and who knows, I got this whole thing like, what if we don't pass the test? We got to come back. And what if there's a better, like, not that I don't appreciate it here, but like, hey, let's get it on here. Like, let's evolve. Like, let's get to the next step. Yeah. And I'm not in any rush to actually get to the next place, but more so is like, before I perish, I'd like to see going forward instead of going backwards, and especially at this opportunity we have with technology and all this other shit. It's like, we have an opportunity to be fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. So like, let's not blow it.
Let's get the most out of each level that we're on too. Have a certain appreciation. Be like, all right, this is the level I'm on. Hey, I may not like it here, whatever. Like, obviously, maybe you need to move up and stuff, but appreciating how it's pushing you along too, to be in that sense. And of course, like you said, we're going to, of course, always go into the origin of things and stuff, and really going behind the deeper meanings. And because like, even just the conversation we just had, like it could go a lot deeper there could be a lot of things where you could look at it through the lens of our ancestors, or through these, more historical or ancient things.
Let's understand them.
Yes, exactly.
But like, not say they're right or like they're the truth, let's just understand them.
Yeah, you can see that you could see the fact that times may be different in certain ways as far as a lot of the aesthetics and stuff like that, but the human mind, yes, it's evolved in certain ways too, but the human mind, when it came to certain things, it still functioned the same way as it did in the past. It functions now how it did in the past too, as well. And there's a lot of talk about at a time that there was times that it functioned in a more connected, higher, divine, peaceful way, in a more pure, genuine way and stuff too. And this is the thing that we're moving towards and wanting to figure out nowadays, at least if you're listening to this podcast or similar things, that's what it is. But also on that note, I mean, should we share with them a little bit of things in store at all about the podcast?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're gonna finally get our Patreon really up and running, and create a tier system finally, and have because we want to start creating more content and get really, really deeper into things. And, we're real passionate about it. And between the situation we have just with our living circumstances and what goes on, and, we really want to keep doing this and all that. So we have a bunch of stuff that we're going to list it out. And eventually when the Patreon's set up, we'll have links in the bio and people can go check out, whether they, want to have a shout out on the show, or they want to come talk to us in a chat, request, topics that they want us to talk about, or, just things that, you can help us out with, we'll help you out with, this given return type of process. So we want to set up the Patreon and eventually even have better streams and all that, but we're going to need help. And so we're going to set more things up. We're going to get a little more exciting here, and it's coming very soon.
Yeah, exactly. All in the process of making things more enjoyable, hearing these things out and relating and having that engagement. It's all the things that are in the work here. So that's a little inside scoop there. But but regardless, definitely appreciate all the people that have joined us and have been on this journey with us as well. There'll definitely be more talks coming along this way, and little bonus things here and there. And of course, obviously the same, very informational type, looks and deep looks into the past and origins and the divine as well. But yeah, I mean, this is the journey, and just want to say once again, thank you to everybody on here, and we appreciate you.
Yep.
And be good, be nice to yourself, be kind.
Yeah. Be kind and have fun and lighten up. And that's what that's the message we bring is we want things to be lighter and more fun, and let's enjoy the information. Let's enjoy the knowledge. Let's enjoy not knowing things instead of trying to know everything. Let's just come together and commune and do all these things because we want to enjoy ourselves. And hey, if learning isn't your thing, or thinking about things too much, I mean, this might not be the place for you to be, but more so but it's not just about that. It is about creating connections with people and figuring out ways that we can all work together and do things together. And that really is, if we were talking about the age of Aquarius and all that, that is what we're trying to move into is, how can we work together in harmony, whether it's between ourselves or whether it's with nature and all of that. We have the opportunity to live amazing lives, and it's up to us. So let's figure out how we can make amazing lives instead of trying to figure out instead of always thinking about this, like pinpointing the problem and then just dick riding the problem. Just sit, this is the problem. And it's just like, just like the media, it's the same thing. It's like, yep, there was murder, there was racism, there was, fucking president's retarded. It's whatever it is. We pinpoint that, and it's like, no, like, let's get back into the wonder, So, and like I said, with the Patreon, really the goal at the end of the day is to try and grow this platform so we can give other people a voice too, and give people an opportunity to try and maybe enter that state of wonder with us, and have this be a place where they can express that too, whether it's through us or with us. But we are going to figure out more ways. We went over it, and we have really good plans. And I'm also doing things with music and all this other stuff. So I have a lot on my plate. I'm learning as I'm going. But at the same time, I mean, that's the, as you guys I think know, me and Geo both like to, explore and grow and do things because we're passionate about it, and everyone should feel that way because it makes the world a better place. And who knows what you'll do, what change you'll instill into the world, and who you'll affect, and what will happen if you find yourself and become passionate about your life, and who will see that and will have their lives affected in that way. So we hope to do that. We want to see you guys do that, and it's coming very soon. And we're stoked. We're stoked sauce about it.
Absolutely. The sport helps us bring in all different types of insight, things even beyond this podcast, things that just come down to the interaction of you guys, and even to see where you guys are at, and really go into those things and allow yourselves to be heard as well, and to go over some of these things and make the certain connections that need to be made, or disconnections that need to be made. That's what we're here for as well. So
yeah, and let me throw this in there actually too, that I know that a lot of people are going to be watching our stuff, and when they see people like Santos, or if we had like Derek from the Gematria, like we're going to have people that have touchy topics and that do have opposition to them, and we respect anybody, even if they've done things like use the F word a lot, not fuck, but the one that Santos likes to throw, the homophobic one that Santos likes to use all the time, and other people, and we used it, but we used it lightly. Even I said it because I was just trying to make it light. But the thing is we need to stop judging people. So when we have somebody on that maybe you don't approve of, stop associating certain people with, if someone else is going through something, we want people to come here and talk to us because we think they have something valuable. We're not going to sit there. We're not bringing people on because they are hateful or are going through a hateful period, meaning or have some
single one of their words either,
and not right. And we understand what a real human is, and that they're not perfect. And we're also not going to consider everyone a controlled opposition or part of the Illuminati or a Freemason or a Jesuit or whatever. We're here to listen. We're here to learn. And that's the only way we're going to get to the answers, is you don't know who has the answer to what. And so any judgment being placed our way, if ever, and I've already seen a few comments and all that, which not much, and I'm happy to see that. And we have actually a lot of positive feedback. So but I'm just saying, in the future, whatever names you see pop up on this podcast, it was for a great reason, and we thought that person had something to bring of value, and to value you and me and all of us and all that. So just have to throw that out there. This is all to grow.
Also, the potential to give them something to think about as well, from even our standpoint as well. That's the thing. It's like we don't represent them, and they don't represent us as well. Same thing with anything. It's representing yourself, representing what's true to you and what's right to you as well. And we feel that it's very right to allow these people that come onto the show as well to have a certain expression that they need to give, and then they could also see how we react to it as well.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, not that we're some staple or anything and stuff. It's just that it's putting these things into practice and putting them into play, practicing what we preach too.
You don't know what they've gone through. You don't know what it is and why they've ended up at that specific spot. And, all of the controversial topics, we don't do it just for a clickbait or whatever. And I mean, that's proof, because it's not like we've put a lot of things out just for that clickbait. We don't do that. Like we want somebody on because we really think that maybe a part of their message or something is important. So that's why we're having them on. And so, I mean, even I watch with Santos, a lot of people are smiting him. A lot of people smite people like Eric Dubé or Mark Sargent. They're the Flat Earth guys. Whoever else. I'm not here to focus on what these people are doing. That, like, if they've hurt someone, I'm well aware of it. But if I see that they have potential and I see their intentions are to bring some sort of information, and they have, like someone like Santos, who has hours and hours of free lectures about things that help us understand the world, and whether you agree with the perspective or not, that's a lot of free time and a lot of effort given by a man like that. And even with people, Flat Earth, they're doing a lot of work every day to, one, fight off trolls, two, to act, and the fact that they truly believe what they're talking about, and they're not doing it to make the Glober people fucking mad or whatever, that they really like respect those people. Like, let's respect each other, and we're gonna have people on whether people like them or not. So just a heads up.
Yeah, no matter what that's being said, the same thing, even with anything we say, like there's always something that you can always pinpoint out that'll help open those doors of perception for you, you know.
Hmm.
So those are the things to look out for, you know. And if you want to focus on anything, focus on those things rather than maybe something that's, you know, necessarily triggering or negative and stuff like that. And then try to understand the psychology maybe behind things, or understand that person where they're coming from as well. So, you know, see how you can practice handling your reaction, handling, you know, the way you're going to process whatever's coming into you. That's the task. It's all of our tasks.
Yep.
So on that note, love y'all. Take care.